Rebirth of the Hidden Mist Village in the Ninja World. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 26, Combo Physical Technique, Part 2. Now, let's get started. Seeing that Rokuze was ready, Taketori Shinsuke reminded him, and then once again began to disassemble in slow motion, practicing the willow dance step by step. Rokuze stood not far away, and did not speak. He silently induced bone spurs in the palm of his hand and practiced along. He didn't know why, but he vaguely felt that this willow dance had many similarities with the ordinary physical skills he learned from his clan in his memory. However, it was not appropriate to be distracted at this time, so he did not say it out loud. He immediately put these thoughts aside and concentrated on practicing along. About 10 minutes later, Taketori Shinsuke took him to practice the willow dance from beginning to end. "How do you feel this time?" Taketori Shinsuke asked as he finished the move. "Remember 2/5. Lyuze smiled and took the opportunity to ask, "I just don't know if it's my illusion. The willow dance you taught me has a lot of similarities with the ordinary taijutsu I learned before." "That's not your illusion." Taketori Shinsuke waved his hand and said with a smile, "The ordinary taijutsu of the clan is actually simplified and improved from the special taijutsu that cooperates with the shikotsu. The purpose is to facilitate the younger generation to master the corresponding special taijutsu more quickly after awakening the shikotsu bloodline limit. No matter how decadent the Taketori clan is, it is stronger than ordinary ninja families. It is a large family that has been passed down for countless generations. With their ability, it is not a problem to develop or collect more suitable general taijutsu for ordinary clan members. But after these clan members awaken the bloodline limit, they must relearn the corresponding special taijutsu to exert the power of the shikotsu bloodline limit, and then it will take too much time and energy. Therefore, the ancestors of the Taketori clan improved and simplified the special taijutsu, and turned it into a universal taijutsu for the clan members who have not awakened the bloodline limit. On the one hand, it is to increase their combat effectiveness, and on the other hand, it is to lay a foundation for them to awaken the bloodline limit in the future, and learn the corresponding special combat skills. So that's it. Hearing this, Lyuze suddenly understood, and immediately compared the willow dance he had just learned with the ordinary taijutsu he had mastered in his mind. After verifying the two, many things that he didn't understand and couldn't remember clearly were immediately understood, and his mastery of the willow dance also increased from the original 2/5 level to 1/2. Although he has not yet mastered the entire taijutsu for those parts that he has mastered, he has become much more familiar with them after verifying them with the taijutsu he had learned before. "Let's continue practicing," he urged Taketori Shinsuke, suppressing his excitement. "Sir, don't you need to rest and digest it?" Taketori Shinsuke asked tentatively. "No need." Lyuze waved his hand and said confidently, "I estimate that if you lead me to practice twice more, I should be able to fully master the entire willow dance. With the existing basic physical skills, his learning speed can be further improved." "Okay." Seeing that he was so confident, Taketori Shinsuke didn't say anything more and immediately started practicing again. Lyuze followed the gestures and soon practiced the willow dance again. But he didn't stop and urged Taketori Shinsuke to start the second round of practice. After this practice, he immediately sat cross-legged on the ground, closed his eyes, and silently integrated everything he had just learned in his mind. About 10 minutes later, he opened his eyes again. "How is it? Do you need me to practice it for you again?" Taketori Shinsuke asked with concern. "No need." Lyuze smiled and said confidently, "I have completely learned the entire willow dance." As he said that, he took a deep breath, then slowly waved his hands, and practiced on the spot with flexible steps. This time, unlike the pause and pause drill during the teaching, he performed the 36 moves in a continuous manner without any pause, just like a willow catkin swaying naturally in the breeze. However, although he looked beautiful and harmless on the outside, in fact, each of his moves contained murderous intent, and each time the spikes stabbed out, they could harvest a life. When he finished the entire willow dance, Taketori Shinsuke couldn't help but applaud and praise him. Your comprehension is really extraordinary. I didn't expect that you would completely learn this willow dance after just a few drills. You know, when he learned this move, he practiced it more than a dozen times with the elders in the clan. And these dozen drills only allowed him to barely remember the 36 moves of this move. In order to show the 36 moves in a continuous manner, he spent several days to achieve this goal. Compared with the person in front of him, he is really far behind. Seeing the bone spurs on his palm, Lyuze smiled and shook his head, saying, I have learned it reluctantly, but just like the 10-finger piercing bullet you taught me before, it will take a long time to practice if I want to really bring out the lethality of this willow dance. Perhaps because he had devoured the residual soul of the original owner of his body, or because adults have stronger learning and cognitive abilities, or because of the influence of chakra power, his learning ability is indeed much stronger than his memory. However, he can only use this willow dance in a coherent manner, and the overall attack speed is still very slow. Such a physical skill is not a trick at all. Only by mastering the movements, increasing the attack speed, and using the 36 movements at once in a very short time, so that the opponent cannot defend, can it be the real willow dance. Not only that, these 36 disassembly movements also include many attack movements such as knee strikes and elbow strikes. When teaching, Taketori Shinsuke once said that these movements must be used in conjunction with one's own corpse bone veins. According to the actual situation of the battle, they need to be ready to produce bone spurs at any time to enhance the lethality of these actions, so that every part of the body that contacts the enemy can burst out with fatal lethality. But Lyuze is currently only barely proficient in producing bone spurs alone. It is a pipe dream to want to produce bone spurs freely to assist in killing during the battle. It will take him a long time to truly exert the power of this move willow dance. By the way, my lord has learned willow dance so quickly, so why not strike while the iron is hot and learn some other physical moves? Taketori Shinsuke suggested with a smile. Then forget it. Lyuze waved his hand and smiled bitterly. You can't chew too much. Just the 10-finger piercing bullet and willow dance that you just taught me are enough for me to practice for a long time. As for other physical moves, I think I'll learn them later. There is no point in being greedy. It is better to transform what you have already mastered into actual combat power first. It is a taboo to be miscellaneous without being refined. Chapter 27 Chaos begins. Therefore, in the following time, Lyuze stepped up the practice of 10 fingers piercing bullets and willow dance. Willow dance was okay, except for the difficulty of inducing bone spikes to increase the lethality at any time. He mastered this move very quickly because of the previous physical skills. Every time he practiced, he could get a different understanding and make himself improve. But the move of 10 fingers piercing bullets really gave him a headache. Because this move was too simple, there was no shortcut to improve it. If you want to improve the lethality of bone spike shooting, you can only practice it over and over again to increase the impact force of the finger bones as much as possible. If you want to increase the impact force, you can only increase the speed of finger bone induction. But the speed of finger bone induction can only be increased by strengthening and mastering the power of corpse bone vein. This is a slow and hard work, and it is impossible to achieve it overnight. Lyuze was very helpless, but he still had to take some time to master the power of corpse bone vein in addition to practicing physical skills. In addition, he also familiarized himself with the simple ninjutsu that he had mastered in his memory, such as the basic techniques of clone technique and transformation technique. As time passed, his progress was visible to the naked eye. However, the journey back was not completely smooth, especially when everyone had memories of their previous lives. On the third day of the return journey, the entire calm ship suddenly became lively. What happened? Seeing that everyone was heading towards the bow, Lyuze hurriedly grabbed a fellow tribesman and asked, I heard that someone seems to be dead. The fellow tribesman sighed. Dead? Lyuze was stunned for a moment, frowned and said, what's so good about dead people? Isn't this normal? There were some seriously injured patients on the ship, and it would not be strange even if someone died. After all, the medical conditions on this ship are limited and cannot be compared with those in the village. because that person did not die of natural causes, but was assassinated last night. The fellow tribesman hurriedly said a sentence, and then walked quickly forward. Assassination? Eliuser was very surprised. He subconsciously thought that a Konoha ninja sneaked onto the ship and took advantage of everyone's deep sleep at night to kill them. But he soon realized that it was not the Konoha ninja who did it. Because the war was over and they had already retreated, there was no need for the Konoha ninja to do such meaningless tricks. In this case, even killing the commander of their army was meaningless. On the other hand, in this vast ocean, just to kill one person, you casually expose your tracks. Facing a whole ninja army, the other party has no chance to escape. Instead of doing this, it is better to follow them back to Kirigakure and continue to lurk. That is obviously more valuable. If it's not Konoha ninja, then who did it? Eliuser was confused. At this moment, he suddenly remembered that everyone had memories of their previous lives. Could it be that it was our own people seeking revenge? He immediately had a guess, and then temporarily put aside the practice and rushed to the bow. Soon, he arrived at the bow. At this time, the place was already crowded with ninjas, some standing on the side of the ship, some hanging on the mast, and even using their clones as footstools. It was so dense that it was full of people. Eliuser arrived late and was blocked outside the crowd. He couldn't see what was going on inside at all. He had no choice but to climb up a mast next to him. At this time, there were already many people hanging on the mast. He finally found a place to hang himself on it. With the advantage of being high above, he finally saw the situation in the crowd. There was a male corpse lying on the ground, and the surrounding decks were stained red with blood. Unfortunately, it was too far away for Eliuser to figure out the specific situation. "Hey, sir, do you know what's going on down there?" He touched a Miss Ninja who was also hanging on the mast next to him. Seeing the red mark on his forehead, the man's face was stern, and he couldn't help but take a small step back. It was obvious that he was quite afraid of their Taketori clan. However, perhaps unwilling to offend him, the man still forced a smile and explained, "I heard that the unlucky guy below was first drugged and then chopped 33 times, and each knife deliberately avoided the vital parts. In the end, he slowly watched himself bleed to death. I don't know who he offended and died so miserably." Hearing this, Eliuser immediately confirmed his earlier judgment that this was indeed a revenge killing. The memories brought by the previous life certainly gave everyone a wealth of intelligence information, but also brought hatred that had not yet been formed. Chaos has begun to appear. Afterwards, after watching the excitement for a while and learning some information from other people, Eliuser left the bow. In the following time, he stayed in the area where the bamboo cutter clan lived and did not dare to walk around casually, silently practicing his physical skills and ninjutsu. Since the first killing began, it was like Pandora's box was opened. Killings followed one after another, and people were killed every night. Fortunately, all the major families on the ship knew the seriousness of the matter, and they spontaneously organized themselves to suppress all the ninjas and barely stabilize the situation. Once the fire of hatred is completely ignited, no one can escape. Everyone will be engulfed by hatred and fall into endless killing. However, although it is stable on the surface, the killing in secret has not stopped. The panic is spreading further, and everyone is worried about whether they will be killed by the enemies in their memories. In this way, after sailing on the sea for 5 days, the ship of the Kirigakure force finally docked and arrived at a seaport on the outermost edge of the water country. "Let's go." The senior ninja of the Taketori clan called out and immediately took everyone off the ship. The ninjas of the other major families also left the barrel of explosives that could explode at any time. Boom. As the many major families that suppressed the situation left, a violent explosion suddenly came from the ship. The anger and hatred that many Kirigakure ninjas had suppressed for a long time were completely detonated, and the battle was about to break out. I don't know how many of those guys can survive. Looking back at the ship, Taketori Shinsuke sighed. The war was obviously over, but they didn't expect that they would die at the hands of their own people. Seeing this, Eliuser also had a look of regret on his face and said with emotion, "The hatred will not disappear, and the killing will not stop. This is just the beginning." Not only their Kirigakure, I'm afraid that the other 4 major ninja villages, and even the entire ninja world are facing the same situation. Previously, there was a war on the front line, and everyone was holding back and didn't explode. Now that the war has stopped, the internal conflicts can't be suppressed. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 28, The Road Back. Just as Ryuze and his party were about to leave, many Miss Ninjas on the boat jumped off and ran straight towards them. I want you to pay with blood. Kill. With a burst of shouts, the group of Miss Ninjas immediately used ninjutsu and took the initiative to attack Ryuze and his party, looking for death. The Bamboo Clan never feared a fight. Seeing someone take the initiative to provoke, some of the clan members immediately gave birth to bone spurs and then sneered and greeted them. No, Ryuze and some of his fellow clan members who were still sober hurriedly tried to stop them, but it was too late. Countless long-range ninjutsu attacks had already reached their heads. As a last resort, they had to retreat in all directions. Boom boom boom. With a roar, countless ninjutsu bombarded the place where they had just stopped, scraping off a layer of the ground, leaving huge deep pits. At this time, the part of the clan members who rushed out to meet the enemy had avoided the area of ninjutsu bombardment and rushed into the crowd. Every part of their body was transformed into a dangerous weapon. Any Miss Ninja who came into close contact with them would be pierced by the bone spurs that suddenly appeared. It was a one-sided massacre. Few people could survive their 10 moves. But in a moment, the group of Miss Ninja who had just launched the attack all fell to the ground, and no one could stand up. You dare to provoke my Bamboo Clan with just this little strength. You are simply overestimating yourself. Pulling out the bone spear from the enemy, a Bamboo Clan ninja spat on the ground with disdain. That's right, that's right. A fellow tribesman next to him laughed, and was also very proud. Not far away, seeing that the fact was done, Ryuze and others could do nothing. Go quickly, we can't stay here for long. After a greeting, they turned around and left immediately. On the battlefield, several Bamboo Clan ninjas who had just participated in the killing were still a little reluctant, but seeing that others had left, they had no choice but to quickly catch up and extinguish the idea of continuing to fight. I think we don't need to be afraid of them seeking revenge, so why do we have to run away? Some people asked in confusion. A calm Jonin looked back at them and sneered. You can kill 10 or 100, but can you kill a whole ninja army of more than 1,000 people? Don't forget, the Kizuna family is also here. If you get those troublesome guys involved, I wonder how you will end up. That's right, if the Kizuna family is also involved, it will be too disadvantageous for us. Liz nodded. The corpse vein of their Taketori clan can restrain most physical ninjas, but they have no way to deal with the water transformation technique unique to the Kizuna family. That unique water escape technique liquefies itself and can almost avoid all physical damage, which just restrains their Taketori clan. This is also the fundamental reason why their Taketori clan always dislikes the Kizuna clan. It is said that when the Kirigakure high-ranking officials ordered the Taketori clan to relocate, the Taketori clan originally intended to teach them a lesson, but the Kirigakure high-ranking officials called the Hazuki clan for help. Facing the Hazuki clan's water transformation technique, the Taketori clan had no choice but to withdraw from Kirigakure and relocate to the outside of Kirigakure village. Hearing this, the more radical members of the clan in the rear were immediately furious. Hazuki. Sooner or later, we have to destroy the Hazuki clan to relieve our hatred. The grievances between the Taketori clan and the Hazuki clan are not limited to the past. In their memories of their previous lives, the failure of the Taketori clan's coup was partly due to Hazuki. The existence of the Hazuki clan left them with nowhere to use their strength. If not, they would not have been defeated so miserably. Seeing this, Ryuze hurriedly explained, memories are always memories. We can't be bound by the memories of the past like those fools. In the future, there are still many interesting things waiting for us to deal with. Some of the same clan Jonins nearby nodded immediately after hearing this. That's right, we must not repeat the same mistakes this time. If it really is like the previous life, then we have lived in vain this time. Hearing this, the stubborn and radical clan members in the back fell into silence. Having died once, they finally understood the beauty of life and naturally did not want to sacrifice in vain like in the previous life. Seeing this situation, Taketori Shinsuke immediately changed the subject and said worriedly, "Chaos has begun to appear. I wonder what the current situation of the clan is? Yes, I'm also worried that the Kirigakure will take the initiative and attack the clan in advance." A Jonin next to him echoed, "That's really hard to say." Liuze couldn't help but sigh. At present, the entire Kirigakure village knows that the Taketori clan may launch a coup. If it is for the sake of the overall situation, the Kirigakure higher level officials should not take action against them so quickly. But if you think about it from another perspective, it doesn't seem to be difficult to accept to cut off the unstable factors that threaten the safety of the village in advance. In any case, let's all be vigilant and take precautions before it happens. This is already the territory of the Land of Water. Liuze looked at everyone and reminded them, when they were on the front line before, even if the Kirigakure higher level officials wanted to take action, they were out of reach. But now that they are back in the Land of Water, there will naturally be no such difficulty, especially since they have been delayed at sea for nearly 5 days. This time is enough for the Kirigakure higher level officials to make arrangements. That's right, we should all be vigilant and must not be careless. Everyone nodded in agreement. At this moment, a violent explosion roared in the distance. Then, they saw that grey-black smoke rose in the dense forest. "Do you want to go over and see the excitement?" someone immediately suggested. "Forget it. The situation is unclear at the moment, so let's not make trouble." Liuze and a group of more rational fellow ninjas shook their heads. They had just returned to the Land of Water and had no idea what was happening in Kirigakure. They had to be careful. Seeing so many people object, those who wanted to watch the fun gave up the idea. However, Liuze and his group did not want to cause trouble, but trouble still came to them. Perhaps they had sensed their presence, and the party fighting in the dense forest quickly approached them. Boom. Then, there was another violent explosion, and a large number of trees in the dense forest fell down, and then a disheveled figure rushed out from the grey-black smoke. After seeing Liuze and his group, his face suddenly lit up, and he rushed over and shouted for help. "Help, ignore him, go full speed." On Liuze's side, a senior ninja made a judgment immediately after seeing it. However, after seeing the man's face clearly, Liuze hurriedly stopped many of his fellow tribesmen. Wait. Chapter 29, Miri Jinpachi. What's wrong? Everyone stopped and looked back at Liuze in surprise. That seems to be Ao, right? Liuze said seriously with a serious face. "I remember that he should be the leader of Terumi Mei. Since that guy is here, Terumi Mei is likely to be nearby." As he said that, he couldn't help but look at the place behind the dense forest, where the battle waves were constantly coming from. Hearing this, a fellow Jonin in the team also nodded and echoed, "Hearing what you said, sir, I also remembered that the little girl Terumi Mei seemed to be in the same ninja team as Ao. In that case, let's go and take a look." The leading Jonin immediately turned around and rushed over there. At this time, a mist ninja holding a square sword and a blindfold on his left eye rushed out of the dense forest. Seeing Liuze and his group, he couldn't help but be stunned. The Bamboo Cutter clan. After a little calmness, he recognized the identity of Liuze and his group. At this time, seeing the faces of the people coming clearly, Liuze and others looked unhappy, because they recognized that it was one of the 7 ninja swordsmen of the Kirigakure, Miri Shinpachi, and the square sword in his hand, like a door panel, was Bakuto Fimo. Obviously, it was this man who was chasing Ao. And as one of the strongest men under the Mizukage, this ninja sword holder is an extremely difficult opponent. It may not be easy to save people from his hands. What should we do? Still save people? A younger fellow tribesman swallowed and asked. Hearing this, many fellow tribesmen cast inquiring eyes on Rokuze at the same time. The deterrent power of the 7 ninja swordsmen was too strong, and they were really a little afraid. Seeing through the fear in everyone's heart, Liuze said seriously, "If all 7 of them came out, we would naturally stay away from them, but now there is only one of them. With our strength, it shouldn't be a problem to stop him alone. Yes. Taketori Shinsuke also chimed in. We have 12 Jonin here. With the combined strength of the 12 of us, we should still be able to contain him. Don't worry too much. As for the others, don't intervene rashly and make unnecessary sacrifices. As he said that, he glanced at the younger people in the crowd. They were not strong enough, and facing this level of battle, they would only die in vain. That's right. Another Jonin of the same clan also nodded, staring at the target closely, and said with great excitement, with our strength, there is no need to be too afraid of him. What's more, don't you think it's interesting to fight with a ninja sword holder? As he spoke, he licked his lips and silently activated the corpse bone vein, giving birth to 2 long bone spurs in the palm of his hand. That's right, that's right. The other awakened corpse bone veins also gave birth to bone spurs. Although they were affected by the memories of their previous lives and became more cautious, their warlike nature did not change. While they were afraid of Mirishinpachi, they were also extremely eager to fight with such a strong man. Let me try it first to see what kind of power this explosive sword flying foam has. One of the Jonin laughed and then rushed out at an accelerated speed. On the other side, after recognizing the identities of Luz and the others, King, who originally thought he could be saved, couldn't help but feel a little desperate, because he didn't have any friendship with the Taketori clan. On the contrary, the Taketori clan didn't have a good relationship with the entire Kirigakure. They might not be willing to help him. However, after seeing the first Taketori strongman take action, he couldn't help but feel incredible again. This was really unexpected. Mirishinpachi, who was chasing, also felt surprised. Why did these brainless guys suddenly change their nature and meddle in other people's business today? He couldn't help but frowned. The fighting power of the Bamboo Cutter clan is obvious to all, and now that they have suddenly intervened, the current situation is a bit difficult to deal with. Helplessly, he could only try to communicate first, trying to avoid conflict with the Bamboo Cutter clan. Especially since the 3rd generation had reminded him not to provoke the Bamboo Cutter clan for the time being. Hey, you guys who are playing with bones, I don't want to fight with you, don't force me. He issued a stern warning to Liuz and his group from a distance. Unfortunately, no one listened to him at all. The many Jonin who had already launched the attack increased their speed and got closer and closer to him. Damn it. Wooly Jinpachi was furious when he saw this and said angrily, since you insist on seeking death, let me send you to hell. As he spoke, he raised the big knife in his hand and swung it hard. The scroll on the blade's spine rotated rapidly, and then a large piece of paper with detonating talismans printed on it flew out and pounced on the enemy rushing in front like a swift long snake. Be careful, don't take it hard, it's a detonating talisman. Liuz in the back saw it and reminded loudly. The bone veins of the Taketori clan are very strong and can form a strong defense, but they are somewhat difficult to deal with the explosive impact of the detonating talisman. However, his reminder is indeed a bit redundant. Although many Taketori Jonins are not clear about what will happen after the extermination of the clan, they are still very clear about the 7 famous ninja swords that have long been circulated in Kirigakure, and they know them even better than Rokuze. Seeing the roll of paper printed with detonating talismans coming, many Taketori Jonins avoided it and retreated quickly. Boom. Then, many detonating talismans on the roll of paper exploded one after another, and a hot wave of fire mixed with a terrifying impact spread out in all directions. Even though they had been prepared, facing such a large-scale attack, many Taketori Jonin still failed to completely avoid it, and were blown away by the impact. When the flames and smoke dissipated, the figures of many Taketori Jonins appeared again. With the bone spurs on their bodies to reduce the impact, they did not suffer any serious injuries, but they were still very embarrassed, and everyone became a grey face. However, the bad start also aroused the anger and ferocity of many Taketori Jonin, making them more eager to fight. Kill. With a burst of shouts, everyone launched an offensive again, and with the advantage of numbers, they quickly got close to Mirishinpachi and started a fierce battle with him. At this time, Rokuze and others came to King's side. Compared with the middle-aged appearance of King in his memory, King at this time was obviously much younger, looking only in his 20s. Not only was there a difference in appearance, but in his memory, the white eyes that should have been transplanted to King did not appear. I think it should be due to the influence of the memory of the previous life. The Hyuga family strengthened their defenses this time, so King did not get the precious white eyes from the Hyuga main family. However, none of this matters anymore. Master King, why did Mirishinpachi, one of the 7 ninja swordsmen, chase you? He asked the young man seriously. Chapter 30, Killing the Water Shadow. King panted and replied, they want to stop me from asking for help. They? Eliuze was surprised and immediately reacted and said, you mean, it's not just Mirishinpachi, there are other ninja swordsmen here? No, that's right. King nodded vigorously and added, there are a total of 4 ninja swordsmen this time, namely, Zigwashin Fuguki, Kurifei Kishimaru, Tankeo Yato, Mirishinpachi. Hearing him name the 4 ninja swordsmen one by one, everyone present couldn't help but take a breath of cold air. It is said that as the strongest subordinates under the Mizukage, each ninja swordsman has extremely terrifying strength and can easily conquer a small country. Therefore, the Mizukage rarely dispatches them collectively, and only 1 or 2 are enough to perform ordinary tasks. But now, 4 people are out together, which is really too surprising. I say, what have you done to make 4 ninja swordsmen dispatched together to deal with you? A young Taketori fellow beside Eliuze couldn't help but ask curiously. It's not me. King took a breath and waved his hand, saying, it's the Mizukage. They are surrounding and killing the Mizukage. Quick, go and help. As he said that, he excitedly pointed to the depths of the dense forest. The battle there was still going on, and the roar of explosions came one after another. They are surrounding and killing the Mizukage? Many ninjas of the Taketori clan looked at each other, somewhat puzzled. The 7 ninja swordsmen are the most capable generals under the Mizukage, so why would they inexplicably surround and kill the Mizukage in this borderland of the Land of Water? Moreover, why did the Mizukage suddenly come here instead of staying in the Hidden Mist village? At this moment, a flash of inspiration flashed through Liu's mind, and he hurriedly grabbed King's shoulder and said seriously, are you talking about the Mizukage, the 5th generation, Meditarumi? If the 3rd generation was surrounded and killed by the 7 ninja swordsmen here, it would naturally seem strange. But if it was Meditarumi who was surrounded and killed here, that would be another matter. Although Meditarumi was not on the same front as them, she should have retreated at about the same time as them. They had just arrived here, so it was normal for Meditarumi and her group to be here. In addition, given Meditarumi's special identity, it was normal for her to be surrounded and killed by 4 ninja sword users. That's right, that's right. King nodded repeatedly and said excitedly, I beg you to quickly reinforce Meditarumi. The situation over there is already in danger. Okay, we got it. Rokuze nodded, then turned back to look at many of his fellow tribesmen, and said seriously, everyone, do you remember what I said earlier? Now, it's time for my Taketori clan to show its sincerity. I'm going to go and reinforce Meditarumi immediately. Are you willing to join me? Upon hearing this, many of his fellow tribesmen expressed their attitudes in unison. Yes, we are all willing to listen to your orders, Master Rokuze. At this time, all the Jonin had gone out to resist Mirishinpachi, leaving only a small number of Chunins and most of the genin in the team. Facing Eliuze, the elder who had lived through the 4th Ninja World War, even many Jonins respected him. Naturally, they had no objections and all expressed unconditional obedience. Thank you for your trust. Eliuze hurriedly bowed to everyone. Although, in terms of physical age, he was only 12 or 13 years old at this time, he had already initially established his prestige in the clan. For him, such a benefit was undoubtedly huge. However, before that, I have one more thing to confirm. He turned around and asked seriously, Lord King, although we promised to reinforce Lady Terumi, our strength is also very limited. I don't want my clan members to die in vain. So, I want to confirm with you, who are the gangsters who besieged Lady Terumi besides the ninja swordsman? Are we really qualified to intervene in such a battle? As he said, he couldn't help but glance at the fierce battlefield over there. The 12 Jonins of the Taketori clan besieged Mirishinpachi, but did not gain any advantage. Instead, there was a faint trend of being suppressed. This is because of the outstanding combat effectiveness of their Taketori clan. If it were any other ordinary jonin, they would have been defeated by now. Hearing this, King looked serious and hurriedly explained, in addition to the 4 ninja swordsmen who besieged Terumimei, they also brought a lot of their own direct subordinates, about 200 people. 1/3 of them are jonin, and 2/3 are chunin, and there are no genin. No genin? Liuze felt very strange about this. King explained again, because most of the genin are of your age, they are all witnesses and followers of Terumimei to open up a new era. Hearing this, Liuze suddenly understood. If they were witnesses of Terumimei sweeping away the Dark Age, they would naturally be supporters of Terumimei. If they were brought out to besiege Terumimei, they would probably turn against her before they even started. It's no wonder that the 4 ninja swordsmen didn't bring any genin. As for the chunin and jonin, they are generally adults. Compared with the later Terumi, they may not have the memory of that period of history, so they are naturally not very interested, and there is no risk of defection. Okay, I understand. Rokuze nodded, feeling a little heavy. All the jonin on their side went to deal with Mirai Jinpachi, leaving only the chunin and genin. It was really difficult to face a group of enemies whose weakest was also chunin. However, the difficulty was indeed very difficult, but it would not hinder his idea of going to reinforce. Then, he turned around and once again solemnly said to many of his fellow tribesmen, this battle will be difficult, and maybe you will all die, but please don't regret or be afraid. Because this is not for the young Mizukage, but for the future of our clan. The existence of the memory of the previous life made the Taketori clan, which had a record of rebellion, very awkward in the position of the Kirigakure. Even if they were not liquidated, it would be difficult for them to continue to survive in the land of water. Therefore, Rokuze suggested supporting the former 5th generation Mizukage Terumi in order to win a new living space. After all, their bamboo cutter clan had no substantial conflicts or contradictions with the later 5th Mizukage. There was no big problem in joining the Mizukage. As for him, the reason why he tried so hard to promote this matter was to better integrate into this world. He had completely accepted his identity as the bamboo cutter Rokuze and naturally did not want to watch his clan slowly go to extinction. He wanted to pull the clan back from the brink of extinction and lead them into a new era so as to live up to his opportunity of rebirth in this life. Chapter 31. Going to reinforce. Don't worry, Master Liuze, we are ready. Yes, we won't regret it. All the ninjas of the Taketori clan expressed their opinions, and their fighting spirit was high. Very good, very good. Liuze nodded, feeling very satisfied. Just as he was about to lead the team to leave, he suddenly remembered something, and hurriedly reminded King beside him, our ship has just docked. If you look over here, you should be able to run into many Miss Ninjas who have just retreated. Among them, there are also some ninjas from the Terumi clan. From there, you should be able to find some more reinforcement. As he said that, he stretched out his finger and pointed in the direction they came from. Thank you, thank you. King nodded repeatedly, and then without taking a rest, he immediately looked in the direction Liuze pointed. Okay, it's time for us to set off too. Looking at the many fellow clansmen present, Liuze immediately took the lead and rushed out. Everyone didn't say much, and immediately followed him. When passing by the battlefield of Mirai Jinpachi and others, Rokuze gestured to the many jonin inside from a distance and said, my lords, we will go to reinforce that person now, and this place will be handed over to you for the time being. No problem, go ahead. A jonin of the Taketori family looked up and responded. However, Mirai Jinpachi did not intend to let them go so easily. Want to leave? I think you'd better die here. He shouted angrily, and then detonated the detonating talisman on the blade again. Boom. I saw flames rising to the sky, and a powerful impact spread, shaking off the many jonins of Taketori who surrounded him. Go to hell. Then, Mirai Jinpachi, who had freed his hands, swung his sword again, and the scroll on the spine of the sword turned rapidly, and then a long roll of paper full of detonating talismans flew out, like a long dragon, shooting towards Mirai and his group outside the battlefield. Don't even think about it. Many jonins of Taketori saw this, and formed seals and cast spells together. Corpse feign dance of early ferns, they all pressed their hands on the ground, madly urging their own bones to grow abnormally, and then countless huge bone spurs drilled out from the ground, and continued to spread around. Seeing that, a forest of bones was formed, covering the entire battlefield. In order to avoid those huge bone spurs that suddenly drilled out from the ground, Wooly Jinpachi had to quickly move on the ground to dodge, and even pulled the roll of paper printed with detonating talismans that he had shot out. Because of his pulling, the entire roll of paper could not be shot out of the battlefield, and was completely trapped in the forest of bones. Boom. Then, accompanied by a loud bang, the roll of paper printed with detonating talismans was completely detonated, and the blazing fire wave and powerful impact spread out. Unfortunately, due to the dense forest of bones on the battlefield, the impact of the explosion was almost confined inside, and it did not hurt Ryuze and others outside at all. Hurry up. Having escaped a disaster, Ryuze hurriedly urged everyone to speed up. Soon, they bypassed the battlefield and rushed into the dense forest behind, leaving only many Taketori Jonin and Miri Shinpachi entangled on the battlefield. No, Miri Shinpachi saw that he had no choice but to be trapped in the forest of bones, and roared in anger and unwillingness. At the same time, Ryuze, who was rushing towards the depths of the dense forest, earnestly reminded everyone, the weakest level of the enemy is also a chunin, which is quite disadvantageous for us. So, it's best not to fight alone. I suggest that we form a group of 3 genin against 1 chunin, and 3 chunin against 1 jonin. Everyone can also take care of each other, and protect their own safety as much as possible. 3 to 1, even if the strength is a little weaker, they should be able to barely cope. This is also the most commonly used battle formation in the ninja world, which can maximize the advantage of numbers. Originally, they also had their own ninja team, but because of the war and retreat, they either said goodbye to, or separated from their original team. Now, they can only help each other in the clan. However, everyone is from the same clan, which has obvious advantages, but also obvious defects. If they encounter the type they are not good at dealing with, they will probably fall into a difficult battle immediately. Well, this suggestion is good. I have no objection. A chunin immediately agreed. I agree too. Agree. The other ninjas also had no objections. Then, they tacitly began to look for partners in the crowd. Not long after, the group was divided into more than 30 teams with 3 people in a group. However, when the group was divided, there was an extra chunin named Taketori Tatsuya, who took the initiative to join Ryuze's team. Considering his own safety, Ryuze did not refuse. After all, the other party only had 1 person left, and could not act alone, so he could only join the team of other genin. Instead of giving others a bargain, it is better to accept this kindness. As for his other teammate, it is a young man named Taketori Chuzheng, who is about the same age as him, and is also a genin. However, the other party has also awakened the bloodline limit of Corpse Vein, and is a very reliable teammate. Ryuze was very satisfied with such a team. As they went deeper into the dense forest, the battle waves from the depths became clearer and clearer, and they could still hear the sound of shouting and killing. Even on the road, they found corpses one after another. However, most of the corpses were incomplete, and their bodies were charred black, as if they had been burned by high temperature. I think that they should be the corpses left by the King Day people when they broke through. Only his explosive sword flying foam could create such a tragic corpse. As they continued to go deeper into the dense forest, there were more and more corpses on the ground, and the battle sounds from the front became clearer and clearer. Ryuze hurriedly raised his right hand and signaled, "Everyone slow down, adjust your breathing rate, recover your energy a little, and be careful to guard against possible sneak attacks." The team brought out by the 4 ninja swordsmen to kill Terumi Mei is naturally not as simple as this. They must have various functional ninjas, such as the perception type ninjas responsible for reconnaissance. If they don't make adequate preparations as soon as possible, they may be discovered in advance and then caught off guard. Yes, Lord Rokuze. Hearing such an experienced arrangement, many Taketori ninjas' trust in Rokuze increased. Then, after slowing down and moving forward carefully for another 10 minutes, a Taketori chunin who was walking in the front suddenly stopped. He sensed a familiar wave in front of him. "Be careful, there is a detonating tag ahead," he shouted to warn everyone and hurriedly retreated. However, as soon as he finished speaking, countless familiar waves suddenly spread out around them, surrounding them in the middle. Unknown when, They had walked into the detonating tag trap set by others. Chapter 32 Encountering an attack. No, prepare for defense. Realizing that it was too late to dodge, Ryuze hurriedly reminded loudly, and then mobilized his chakra to activate his own corpse bone vein bloodline limit. In an instant, countless bone spurs broke out of his skin, turning him into a hedgehog, protecting himself with dense spikes. He knew very well that these bone spurs could not completely block the impact of the explosion, but at least they could help him reduce some of the impact, so that he would not completely absorb the damage caused by the explosion. Hearing the reminder, everyone also showed their magical powers and started a defensive posture. Boom boom boom. Immediately afterwards, a series of explosions sounded, and the strong impact and hot waves of fire spread out. Being in it, Ryuze suddenly felt that the air became hot in an instant, and even breathing felt like his trachea was burned and painful. He had no choice but to hold his breath temporarily. What's more fatal is that the violent explosion impact fell on him and immediately shook him back, and he couldn't stand at all. Fortunately, there were other people of the same tribe behind him, and his own bone spurs got caught on the other's bone spurs, and he immediately regained his footing. Fortunately, the enemy's detonating talismans may have been almost used up. If they were to disperse and set up traps, although the damage range would become larger, the power that fell on each person individually would be greatly reduced. After resisting for nearly 5 seconds, the explosion finally dissipated completely. Be careful of sneak attacks. Don't let your guard down. Without waiting for the smoke to disperse, Ryuze endured the severe pain and reminded everyone again. It is impossible for the enemy not to have noticed such a violent explosion. It is even possible that they have been lurking around early in the morning, waiting for an opportunity to attack. However, as soon as he finished speaking, a familiar dense sound of breaking through the air suddenly came from all around. Swish. Relying on his experience, Ryuze immediately recognized that it should be the shuriken thrown by the enemy, and there were many of them. Seeing this situation, he could only retract the bone spurs hanging on others, temporarily untie the entanglement between the two sides, and restore himself to a state of free movement. Ding ding. Then, several silver lights flashed before his eyes. Before he could react, he felt several shurikens hit the bone spurs on his body. Fortunately, the bone spurs on his body were dense, otherwise he might have been hit by those shurikens. Unfortunately, there were not many bamboo ninjas who had awakened the corpse bone vein, and not everyone had the same defensive ability as him. Some of his fellow tribesmen were seriously injured in the explosion just now. At this moment, they had no extra strength to resist the shurikens. They were immediately hit by the shurikens and fell to the ground with screams. When the smoke and dust dispersed, everyone could see clearly that the ground under their feet had been peeled off, and the surrounding area was covered with broken branches and leaves. However, what made Ryuze sad was that there were nearly 10 fellow tribesmen lying on the ground, and several of them had completely stopped breathing. Even those who were still standing were all wounded and not in a good condition. He felt very frustrated that he was messed up like this before he officially fought with the enemy. But in fact, it was not his fault. He had been as careful as possible. The Bamboo Cutter clan was indeed very strong, especially good at physical close combat. But this does not mean that they are omnipotent. Without a perceptual ninja to lead the way, and without absolute strength to hold the fort, the same result would be achieved if anyone else came. This is the defect of the ninja. They are very strong in one aspect, but because of their limited energy, it is difficult to take care of other aspects, which forms the so-called shortboard. Therefore, under normal circumstances, when forming a ninja team, the captain of the team will generally refer to the abilities of the candidates, and then choose players with different abilities to make reasonable combinations, so that the team can adapt to more and more complex situations. At the same time, as the smoke and dust dispersed, the enemies hidden in the dark also appeared, surrounded from all directions, and surrounded many bamboo cutter ninjas in the center. However, their number is not large, only about a dozen people, far less than the 6-Ze party, among which there are only 5 senior ninjas, and all of them are injured. Obviously, it was not an easy task for them to surround and kill Taketori. Remember my previous instructions, try not to face the enemy alone. After giving the last instructions, Ryuze locked onto the nearest mist hidden ninja and rushed over. As his teammates, Taketori Tatsuya and Taketori Chusei naturally followed closely. As for the others, there was no extra words, and they all locked onto their targets and launched an offensive. Seeing this, the mist ninja who came to stop them did not waste any words and also accelerated to meet them. For a while, the ninjas of both sides fought fiercely with the site that had just exploded as the center. Perhaps because his energy had been greatly consumed, Ryuze's opponent was indeed a chunin, but his condition was quite poor and his combat effectiveness had seriously declined. Facing the offensive of such a genin, the opponent actually had some difficulty coping. When the two teammates behind him caught up and launched a pincer attack from the left and right, the opponent seemed to be unable to resist and was beaten back step by step. Damn it. Seeing this, the chunin didn't care about saving chakra anymore and immediately used the instant body technique to quickly retreat and distance himself, and then quickly changed his hand seals to prepare for the spell. Don't even think about it. Rokuze and Taketori Nakamasa raised their hands at the same time and opened their 10 fingers, aiming at the enemy in the distance. Corpse bone vein 10 finger piercing bullet. Corpse bone vein 10 finger piercing bullet. Under the power of the corpse bone vein, the tips of the 10 finger bones turned into bone spikes and were suddenly hit and ejected, shooting towards the enemy far away. Because of the injury, the mist hidden chunin's movements were a bit slower, and facing Rokuze's extremely simple long-range ninjutsu attack, naturally he didn't have time to complete the technique before being hit. Damn it. He had no choice but to pause for a while and then dodge to the side. Thump, thump, thump. With a muffled sound, 20 small bone spikes fell into the air and hit a big tree behind the position where he just stood. However, Taketori Nakamasa was obviously more proficient in this move than Rokuze. Therefore, the 10 bone spikes he shot were completely embedded in the tree trunk. On the contrary, Rokuze's 10 bone spikes were just for show. The power, which was not much, was almost exhausted after shooting a certain distance. It only made a slight sound when it hit the tree trunk and fell to the ground. Seeing this, the mist hidden ninja who had just dodged was stunned. What? He was actually frightened by such an attack, which was really embarrassing. Maybe, if he had just resisted the attacks of Rokuze and the other two, he could have completed his own technique. It is even possible to completely reverse the situation with that technique. Unfortunately, he understood it too late. Chapter 33 Clearing Obstacles. Just as the Kirigakure chunin was about to seal and cast a spell again, Taketori Tatsuya had already accelerated and approached, then jumped up and launched an attack with a kunai. Not good. He was startled and hurriedly stepped back to avoid it, but it was too late. Taketori Tatsuya held a kunai in his hand and instantly slashed down from the opponent's face. Swish. A silver light flashed, and the Kirigakure chunin suddenly froze in place. Then, a blood mark appeared between his eyebrows, and then spread rapidly along the bridge of his nose to the lower body. When the blood mark ran through his entire body, the Kirigakure chunin seemed to have lost all his strength, and he could no longer support himself, and fell straight back. Lord Rokuze, we succeeded. Taketori Chusho was very excited. Defeating a chunin with the strength of a lower ninja was enough for him to be proud of. Seeing through his thoughts, Ryuze smiled bitterly and shook his head, saying, "This battle has just begun. Don't be too happy too soon." What's more, the opponent has been exhausted for a long time, and his combat effectiveness has seriously declined. Plus, with the help of Senior Tatsuya, we can easily deal with him. As he said that, he couldn't help but glance at Taketori Tatsuya who was walking over there. This senior of the same clan also has the strength of a chunin, and even without the help of the two of them, he should be able to deal with this Kirigakure chunin independently. In other words, the two of them actually benefited from each other. Who is the next target? Taketori Tatsuya asked curiously, and began to scan the battlefield. The number of enemies who came to intercept them was not large, and even if they were a group of 3 to meet the enemy, there would still be enough people, so they were still in the mood to slowly look for the next target here. That must be him. Ryuze pointed to a battlefield on the right. There were 3 genin fighting with a tall Kirigakure chunin. Either the opponent was stronger, or the 3 of them were weaker, or both. They had a hard time dealing with it, and the whole battle was full of dangers. As the initiator and leader of this reinforcement, Lyuze must be responsible for the group of people who followed him, and bring them back safely as much as possible. Okay. Taketori Tatsui responded, and immediately rushed over. Lyuze and the other two followed closely behind, and once again raised their hands, and aimed at the opponent with their open 10 fingers. Corpse bone vein 10 finger piercing bullet. Corpse bone vein 10 finger piercing bullet. The power of the bloodline limit was activated by them again, and then a small bone cone was created to hit and eject from the fingertips, aiming at the tall mist ninja in the battlefield from a distance. Faced with such a sudden attack, not knowing the details of the opponent, the tall mist ninja certainly did not dare to take it head on, and immediately paused the offensive and retreated to the side. Thump thump thump. 20 bone cones hit the open space, but did not cause much damage. 10 of them just embedded in the ground, and 10 fell completely on the ground, only knocking out 10 shallow marks on it. Seeing this result, the tall mist ninja was immediately very surprised. However, before he could make any further plans, Taketori Tatsui had already arrived in front of him, wielding a kunai, and aiming at his neck. The tall mist ninja didn't have time to think more, and immediately retreated quickly. At this time, Liz and the other two had already separated, and launched a pincer attack on the target from the left and right. Sensing their pincer attack, and that he had no time to dodge, the mist ninja quickly formed a seal, then stood firm, and stomped hard on the ground. Water style, water array wall. In an instant, a stream of clear water quickly overflowed from under his feet, and then turned into a circular water curtain barrier that covered him completely. It was only because of his lack of strength and the lack of water here that the circular water curtain was not large and looked very weak. However, even so, he still had enough confidence to use this weak water curtain to block the pincer attack of just 2 genin. At this time, seeing the water curtain suddenly rise, Liz and the other two had no time to dodge and could only bite the bullet and stab with the kunai in their hands. Wow. The kunai pierced into the water curtain very easily, and there was almost no resistance. However, the water-style ninjutsu water flow wall does not rely on the density of the water flow to block external attacks. It relies on the impact of the water flow, using the rapid impact of the water flow to disperse and deflect external attacks, thereby achieving the purpose of defense. At the moment when the kunai just pierced into the water curtain, Lyuze suddenly felt a strong water flow hitting his kunai. Swish. Before he could further use the kunai to pierce the water curtain, the huge water flow impact had already washed the kunai in his hand out of his hand and rushed up into the sky along the water flow. As for him, he was also blown up from the ground by the force and was no longer able to attack. When the water curtain dissipated, the two had already fallen to the ground wet. However, Taketori Tatsui and the other 3 genin of the same clan had already caught up, and once again started a fight with the tall mist ninja, making it impossible for him to escape, and no longer have the extra strength to deal with Lyuze and the others. Lyuze and the other two also took the opportunity to get up from the ground, and joined the battle again. In a moment, the tall mist ninja fell into the attack of 6 people, and could not get rid of it. In particular, the 6 people were very good at physical skills, which completely eliminated his chance to use ninjutsu again. Then, after more than 20 rounds of fighting, Lyuze seized the opportunity and activated the corpse bone vein at the moment of close contact with the opponent. A 2-foot-long bone spur was born from the palm of his hand, which unexpectedly pierced the opponent's chest, and the battle ended. At this time, the battles between other tribesmen and the enemy were almost smooth sailing. After all, their opponents had consumed a lot of physical strength in advance to surround and kill Taketori and her group. At this moment, their state was not good, and their combat effectiveness was greatly reduced. Facing Lyuze's group of fresh forces, it was really difficult to deal with them. In the end, after nearly half an hour of fierce fighting, Lyuze and his group wiped out all the mist ninjas who came to block them. But they also paid the price of the death of 8 genin, including 2 chunin. In addition, there were several people with serious injuries who had almost completely lost their combat effectiveness. Seeing this, Lyuze immediately told them seriously, "Find a place to rest well, and you don't have to participate in the next battle." "No, everyone hasn't retreated yet, how can we leave first?" A seriously injured person immediately objected and wanted to stand up anxiously. However, after he moved, his injuries were affected again. He couldn't help but grimaced in pain and sat back down. Fighting is not for you to die in vain. Rest well and make plans after you recover. Liuz gently patted the man's shoulder and persuaded him again. The man was still a little unwilling, but the injuries on his body really made him unable to muster any strength, so he had no choice but to accept Liuz's proposal. Okay, find a safe place to rest quickly. Leave it to us next. After telling them again, Liuz immediately led the others to the depths of the dense forest. At this time, they were very close to the core battlefield. The waves of battle continued to come, and even a genin like Liuz could clearly sense the turbulence with his weak perception ability. Chapter 34, The Sorrow of the Weak. Soon, under the leadership of Liuz, the group finally arrived at the core of the battlefield. There were countless corpses lying on the ground, and it was impossible to distinguish between enemies and friends. However, after careful identification, Liuz found that most of the dead were relatively young and should be at the level of genin. Obviously, they should be the companions of Terumi Mei, because he clearly remembered that King had said that the 4 ninja swordsmen did not bring genin level subordinates, and Terumi Mei was still in power, so those who supported her should be relatively young now, mostly like him. At this time, because of their arrival, the two sides fighting on the battlefield could not help but stop tacitly. The Bamboo Cutter clan. Everyone recognized them, especially the Ziggush and Puffer Ghost side, after discovering that the people they sent out to block them had completely lost contact. They immediately realized that they should be reinforcement from Terumi Mei's side. Kill them. Without the slightest hesitation, he immediately issued a killing order to his subordinates on the battlefield. Unfortunately, the battle was deadlocked, and their subordinates could not get away to deal with Liuz and his group. After hearing the order from the Watermelon Mountain Pufferfish Ghost, Terumi and her party immediately understood that the people coming were their reinforcement, and they felt much better. Although they didn't understand why the Taketori clan, who had no friendship with them, would come to reinforce them, the result was good after all. At the same time, Liuz once again instructed many of his fellow tribesmen, just like before, continue to act in groups of 3 and try not to provoke enemies that you can't handle. After that, he locked onto the 2 chunins fighting not far away and rushed over. The rest of the people followed closely and entered the battlefield together, each choosing an enemy to join the battle. With the addition of their reinforcement, Terumi's party's morale was high, and the originally bad situation was slightly alleviated. Because both sides in the battle were chunins, Liuz couldn't tell the enemy from the enemy, so he didn't act rashly, but just shouted from a distance, "Where is Lady Terumi Mei?" One of the Mist Ninjas forced the opponent back with one blow, and then pointed to the depths of the battlefield. "The master is over there, hurry up and help." The other person did not answer, and rushed towards the opponent again. Seeing the different reactions and attitudes of the two people, Liuz immediately distinguished the identities of the two. The one who was unwilling to answer him must be the enemy. Then, 3 people joined the battle, and besieged the Mist Hidden Ninja who was unwilling to answer. Facing the siege of 4 people, especially with 2 chunin level opponents in the middle, the Mist Ninja could not resist, and was immediately beaten back. After more than 10 rounds of continuous confrontation, Taketori Tatsuya seized the floor and decisively cut the opponent's throat with one blow. Thank you for your help." After successfully defeating the enemy, the chunin on Terumi Mei's side excitedly thanked the 3 people. Originally, he had fallen into a disadvantage and the situation was precarious. If it were not for the timely support of the 3 people, the result can be imagined. Nothing. Liuz waved his hand and confirmed again, "Is Master Terumi Mei really over there?" As he said, he looked in the direction the other party had just pointed. Unfortunately, there were too many people on the battlefield, and the shadows were crowded. It was difficult to see the situation from a distance. "Yes, the Lord is over there." The man nodded and said, "Please fight bravely and repel these rebels." After that, he clenched his kunai, aimed at another battle group not far away and rushed over. Taketori Nakamasa, who was standing next to him, couldn't help but ask, "Lord Rokuze, should we go over and join Terumi Mei?" "No need. Rokuze looked serious and shook his head. This battle was caused entirely by the 4 ninja swordsmen wanting to hunt Terumi Mei. Then, on the entire battlefield, the battle on Terumi Mei's side should also be the most intense core part. With our strength, it's best not to intervene rashly. We just need to try to eliminate the enemy's living forces on the periphery. Needless to say, as the most intense core part of the battle, that side is also the place where several ninja swordsmen focus on taking care. If you want to intervene in the battle over there, you should at least have the level of a jonin. The 3 of them are not qualified. But, what if Terumi is killed by them, because we don't have good support? Taketori Rokuze asked after a moment of hesitation. According to Rokuze, their goal is to support Terumi to take the throne and use the power of the former 5th generation Mizukage to return to Kirigakure. But if Terumi dies before that, their plan will naturally be ruined. Rokuze immediately patted the shoulder of this young fellow tribesman and said seriously, "Nakamasa, I think there is one thing you don't understand. Our strength is not enough to deal with a jonin level opponent, let alone decide the outcome of this war. So, even if we put all our lives on it, it will hardly affect the life and death of Terumi. In the end, there will only be a few more useless corpses. That's all we can do. As for the result, it depends on her luck." He did want to cling to Terumi's thigh, but he was not a deadhead fan, and had no determination to sacrifice his life for her. Considering the future of the tribe, he naturally didn't want to lead his tribesmen to die in vain. They just had to do their best. What's more, the 12 jonin of their clan have already held back Miri Shinpochi, and they are very sincere about the reinforcement of Terumi. But, if Terumi really dies here, what will you do next, sir? The silent Taketori Tatsuya suddenly asked. Rokuze thought for a while and shook his head. She is not the only Mizukage. If she really dies here, then we can find the next Mizukage to support us. What's more, the current situation is so chaotic, it's hard to say who will be the next Mizukage. Don't worry too much. It would be a pity if Terumi died here, but he had no way to do it. Their strength was only this level, and they could not change the overall situation. He felt powerless about it, but he could do nothing about it. This is the tragedy of the weak. All the misfortunes are caused by their being too weak. They can only passively adapt to this cruel world and accept all the misfortunes. If Rokuze and his men were strong enough to influence the direction of this battle, he would naturally not be stingy with his strength and would definitely go all out to save Terumi from the predicament. Unfortunately, there is no if. At this moment, a battle between 2 chunins not far away was decided. One of them stabbed the other in the chest with a kunai. The remaining one was panting, looking at Lyuze and the other 2 with a look of vigilance and precaution. Obviously, they should be the people brought by the Ziguishan Puffer demon. Kill. Lyuze did not hesitate, and immediately led the charge. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 35, Encountering a Strong Enemy. After a fierce battle, Lyuze and Taketori Rokuze seized the opportunity and used the corpse bone vein to stimulate bone spurs at the same time, poking the enemy into a hornet's nest unexpectedly from the left and right. However, not everyone on the battlefield was smooth sailing. They successfully defeated 2 enemies, but it did not mean that the others on Terumi Mei's side were also like this. After all, the average strength of the enemy side was much stronger than theirs. They only had the advantage of numbers. And this advantage of numbers also meant that their casualties were far greater than their opponents. Soon, the senior ninja Oishi, who belonged to the 4 ninja swordsmen, targeted the 3 people. After dealing with his opponent, water style, water wave, he quickly formed a seal, and then condensed chakra, spitting out a blue torrent, to attack the 3 people. At the same time, seeing that they were about to deal with another enemy, they suddenly sensed the dangerous fluctuations coming from behind, and the 3 people of Lyuze were immediately startled. Not good, get out of the way. Taketori Tatsuya, who was the strongest and had a faster reaction, was the first to issue a warning. Ryuzen and the others did not dare to say much and immediately gave up the opportunity in front of them and prepared to avoid the attack from a distance. However, the enemy who was just hanging by a thread in front of them was obviously not going to let them go. Want to leave? Die with me. He forced himself to be strong and suddenly accelerated to get closer and then stretched out his hands with a ferocious smile and grabbed one arm of Luz and Taketori Nakamasa on the left and right respectively. Damn it, let go. Luz and the other two were terrified and struggled desperately. However, the other party had already held the intention of dying together, so naturally they would not let go so easily. The two helpless people could only mobilize chakra to activate the corpse bone vein. In an instant, several huge bone spurs suddenly grew from their arms and then pierced through the other party's body. But even so, the other party still held them tightly and did not let go. Damn it. Seeing that the crisis behind them was gradually approaching and they still could not get rid of the restraints, Luz and the other became more and more anxious. Seeing this situation, Taketori Tatsuya made up his mind and stepped forward to block the two. Ryuzen's pupils shrank when he saw the other party's thoughts. Just as he was about to persuade him to leave, the blue torrent had already arrived in front of the three people. Without too much time to prepare, Taketori Tatsuya immediately put his wrists together, then opened his palms forward and concentrated chakra in his palms to prepare for the impact. Boom. Immediately afterwards, a powerful force hit his hands. Even though he tried his best, the whole person was involuntarily pushed back by the torrent. Ryuzen and the other two had no time to react before they were hit by Taketori Tatsuya, who rushed back, and then they were swept away by the torrent. When the torrent subsided, the three people felt severe pain all over their bodies, as if they were falling apart, and they could hardly muster any strength. Senior, are you okay? Without bothering to check his own injuries, Ryuzen struggled to get up and looked anxiously at Taketori Tatsuya, who was lying next to him. If the other party had not blocked them in time and blocked most of the torrent for them, their situation would definitely be worse than it is now. Fortunately, I won't die for now. Taketori Tatsuya forced a smile, but his face was pale and he could no longer move. He had completely lost his fighting ability. Why do you want to show off? You can avoid it completely? Looking at the enemy walking in the distance, Ryuzen was careful and guarded while angrily scolding. Taketori Nakamasa next to him also endured the severe pain and climbed up, standing shoulder to shoulder with him, posing a defensive posture. Taketori Tatsuya smiled bitterly and replied, because I see hope and the future in you, sir. Maybe you can change the fate of our clan's demise, lead us into a new era. So, sir, you can't die here. Next to him, Taketori Nakamasa also nodded after hearing this, looked at Ryuzen seriously and said, I also believe that sir can bring hope to our clan. So, sir, please leave here quickly. I will buy you as much time as possible. As he said that, without waiting for Ryuzen's consent, he rushed out in one step. Through the attack just now, he has determined that the opponent is a Jonin level opponent, which is completely beyond their ability to deal with. Since there is no possibility of victory, they can only try their best to ensure that their clan's hope, Ryuzen, can leave safely. No, come back quickly. Ryuzen's pupils shrank when he saw it, and he was immediately ready to rush up to stop Taketori Nakamasa. However, at this moment, Taketori Tatsuya grabbed his ankle. Sir, you should leave quickly. Tatsuya anxiously advised again. But, looking at Nakamasa, who just rushed out, and Tatsuya, who was still seriously injured and lying on the ground, Ryuzen really couldn't bear to abandon them. Especially as a leader, he strongly advocated to come together to reinforce Meditarumi. At this moment, if he fled in the face of the enemy, what qualifications and face would he have to lead the Taketori clan in the future? However, he also clearly understood that the opponent's strength reached the level of Jonin, which was absolutely beyond their ability to deal with. Even if they stayed stubbornly, the result would be death. That would be meaningless. Before he made a decision, Taketori Nakamasa had already arrived in front of the enemy. Die. He shouted angrily and activated the corpse vein, and two huge bone spurs quickly grew out of his palm. Corpse feign willow dance then, he quickly swung the bone spurs, using his elbows, knees, shoulders, and even every part of his body as weapons, launching continuous attacks on his opponent. Although his face was full of murderous intent, his movements were extremely light and graceful, like a willow catkin swaying in the breeze, and he looked harmless. But as a fellow from the Hidden Mist village, Oishi naturally knew how terrible the lethality of the Taketori clan was in the close combat field. Even facing the attack of such a genin, he did not dare to take it head on. Then, he relied on his faster speed to distance himself from Taketori Nakamasa, and then quickly formed a seal and condensed his chakra in his mouth. Water style water wave then, he transformed his chakra into a water attributed nature and spit out a blue torrent again. Taketori Nakamasa saw it and wanted to dodge immediately, but unfortunately, because of the desperate pursuit, the distance between them was relatively close. In addition, the speed of the Jonin was much faster than his. Just as he thought of dodging, the blue torrent had already hit him. Wow. The strong current interrupted the combo of the willow dance of Taketori Nakamasa, and he was blown away without any resistance. Lord Rokuze, hurry up. With difficulty, he looked in the direction of Rokuze, and the loyal genin stopped breathing completely after landing. Chapter 36 A critical moment. Seeing this, Liuze felt bitter. The opponent was too strong. Chuzheng didn't even last a single move in his hand. Even if he wanted to run, it was too late. Moreover, the speed of the Jonin level was much faster than him. Even if he managed to escape at this moment, it was impossible to completely get rid of the opponent. Everything was in vain. They are protecting you so much. It seems that your identity is very extraordinary. Staring at Liuze, Dashi walked over calmly. Because of the performance of Taketori Chuzheng and Taketori Tatsuya, he became more determined to kill Liuze. Helpless Liuze could only force himself to be energetic, carefully took out a kunai from his pocket, and said seriously, "Sorry, I'm just an ordinary member of the Taketori tribe. I'm sorry to disappoint you." At this moment, the only thing he could do was to delay time as much as possible, hoping that other Jonin would be able to spare their hands to help him. However, the friendly forces that could be seen nearby were almost all at the level of Chunin, and each of them was in a fierce battle with the opponent, and could not get away at all. "Oh, really?" Dashi smiled playfully, and then said, "But do you think I will believe it? Be prepared to die. You are a bunch of lunatics who only know how to kill. Keeping you here will only endanger the safety of the Hidden Mist village." As he spoke, he had already changed his hand seals, preparing to cast the spell again. Unwilling to sit and wait for death, Liuze immediately ran quickly, ready to avoid the upcoming attack, and opened the 5 fingers of his left hand to aim at the opponent. Corpse bone vein 10-finger piercing bullet. Although it is called 10 fingers, this time he only used one hand, so only 5 bone cones were ejected. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Because there is no need to prepare with hand seals, Liuze's release speed of this move is very fast, and the 5 bone cones arrived in front of Dashi in the blink of an eye. At this time, Dashi's preparations for the technique were not completed. However, because Liuze was still not proficient in the mastery of 10-finger piercing bullet, the power of the bone cone ejection was insufficient and the speed was also a bit slower. Dashi easily dodged the attack by just slightly turning sideways, and his preparation for the technique was not interrupted. Water style, water wave chakra was transformed by the nature of water, and a blue torrent gushed out of his mouth and rushed towards Liuze. Fortunately, there was still a not so short distance between the two. Relying on the distance buffer, Liuze quickly turned over to avoid it, and barely avoided this fatal attack. Boom. The blue torrent brushed his body and fell on the ground where he had just stopped, immediately creating a huge deep pit. However, his crisis was not resolved. Seeing that he did not hit the target, Dashi continued to output chakra to maintain the torrent, and turned his head to sweep the torrent towards Liuze. Boom. The high pressure water flow easily cut the ground like a blue razor, leaving a deep scratch. Not good. Liuze was shocked when he saw it, and immediately took a big step, eager to avoid the torrent chasing behind. However, Dashi was not someone who gave up so easily. Seeing Liuze evading, he immediately swept the rapids to pursue. The scratch on the ground immediately lengthened at a speed visible to the naked eye. Finally, when the scratch reached 7 meters long, the rapids finally caught up with its target. Realizing that he was about to be swept by the dangerous rapids, Eliuse's heart could not help but rise to his throat. Is it over? No, I won't accept it. The strong desire to survive made him roar unwillingly, and he immediately activated the corpse bone vein and desperately gave birth to bone spurs. Seeing that he was completely covered in a layer of dense bone spurs, like a human hedgehog, he knew very well that these bone spurs could not completely block the impact of this dangerous rapids, but it did not mean that these bone spurs were meaningless. They could also hinder the water flow, help him reduce the impact and lethality of this rapids, and let him survive as much as possible under the impact of this move. Boom. At the moment when the bone spurs covered his whole body, the dangerous rapids also hit Eliuse. He couldn't stand at all, and was immediately forced to the ground by a terrifying force. Before he could react, he heard a strange crackling sound from his bone spurs. Facing the powerful impact of the torrent, even his bone spurs, which were much harder than normal people, could not withstand it. Snap. As the torrent continued to hit, the bone spurs that were directly hit by the torrent broke instantly, and the remaining strong water pressure also fell on him. Wow. Eliuse was hit hard in an instant and couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. When the power of the torrent was completely exhausted and dissipated in front of him, his body had almost completely lost consciousness and could no longer move. Oh, you're not dead yet? Dashi, who was not far away, was very surprised. Unexpectedly, a mere genin could still survive after withstanding his water escape ninjutsu. But everything ends here. He sneered and took out a kunai and slowly walked towards Eliuse, ready to give the final blow. Seeing the approaching killer, Eliuse wanted to stand up and resist, but he was too badly injured to move. Not far away, Taketori Tatsuya was also very anxious, but his condition was only slightly better than Eliuse's, and he was also unable to help. After struggling on the ground for a few times, he completely exhausted the little strength he had just recovered. Rustle. The footsteps of Dashi were getting closer and closer, and Eliuse's nerves were getting more and more tense. He didn't want to die, but the objective reality made him feel powerless. At this moment, he had never been so eager for power. Only a strong power could prevent him from falling into such a sad and desperate situation. However, just as he was unwilling to accept such a fate, a burst of shouting and killing suddenly came from the dense forest behind him. Kill for Lady Terumi Mei. Hearing this movement, both sides of the battle on the battlefield were startled and stopped. Looking back, he saw countless mist ninjas rushing out of the dense forest, and led by King, they bravely charged into the battlefield. The originally stalemate situation was reversed in an instant. Damn it. Dashi couldn't help but spit on the ground fiercely. However, this did not dispel his idea of killing Eliuse. Then, he quickly came to Eliuse's side, tightly grasped the kunai in his hand, and stabbed it fiercely. Seeing that the sharp kunai was about to pierce his neck, Eliuse couldn't help but shrink his pupils, and was horrified to the extreme. However, at this moment, a figure suddenly came in front of him, and tightly grasped the kunai that was about to pierce his neck. It's you. Dashi was surprised and recognized the person. It was King, the guiding ninja of Terumi Mei, who had led people to break through and wanted to seek reinforcement from outside. It was thought that the other party should have died in the hands of the pursuing ninja swordsman Miri Shinpachi, but who would have thought that this guy was not dead and actually brought back so many reinforcement. Chapter 37 Final Struggle. Unfortunately, King ignored him and just swung the kunai in his other hand towards Oishi's neck. Faced with this fatal blow, Oishi had to give up the idea of killing Luz, let go of the kunai that was caught by someone, and hurriedly retreated. Seeing that the crisis was completely eliminated, Luz's tense nerves finally relaxed. How is it? Are you okay? King asked in a low voice, while being on guard. I won't die for the time being, but I have to rest for a while. Luz replied with a wry smile. After the impact of the torrent, his internal organs were seriously damaged. Fortunately, he did not give up resistance and gave birth to bone spurs to offset a considerable part of the impact pressure of the torrent. Otherwise he would not even be alive at this moment. It doesn't matter, leave the rest to us. After a gentle comfort, King immediately rushed out and ran directly towards Oishi. In an instant, the two Jonins met in close combat and launched a fierce close combat. However, due to the continuous fighting, Oisha's physical strength consumption was far more serious than King's, and his movements could not help but slow down a lot, and his combat effectiveness seriously declined. From the beginning of being evenly matched, he slowly began to fall behind. Finally, after more than 20 rounds of confrontation, King seized the opponent's flaw and decisively launched a fatal blow, completely ending the battle. At this time, because of the reinforcement brought back by King, the situation on the entire battlefield was instantly reversed. The ninja swordsman was retreating step by step, and it was seen that he was on the verge of complete collapse. Old Ghost, the situation is not good, let's retreat quickly. Tankeo Yeri Ren casually cut off a ninja's weapon with a knife, frowned and shouted to his companions not far away. The battle lasted too long, and their physical strength was seriously consumed. At this time, it was a bit difficult to deal with an elite ninja alone. If they continued to entangle, I'm afraid they would be exhausted to death here. Hearing this, Kirishin Kishimaru, who had just tied up two ninjas with steel wire not far away, also echoed, "Yeah, that little girl is not that easy to deal with. Let's go back and make plans later." The four great ninja swordsmen came here to kill Terumi Meri, mainly led by the guy Zigguishin Puffer Ghost. That guy wanted to compete for the position of Mizukage, so he brought the three of them here to kill the future 5th generation Mizukage. Although it is still hard to say whether Terumi Meri can become the 5th generation Mizukage again, her existence is undoubtedly the biggest obstacle for all candidates who aspire to compete for the position of the next Mizukage. Unfortunately, they underestimated the influence of Terumi Meri when she was in power. When she withdrew from the front line this time, a very strong force had gathered around Terumi Meri. This is also the reason why they failed to kill. At this moment, another powerful reinforcement joined the battlefield, and their defeat was inevitable. Hearing what the two said, Zigguishin Puffer Ghost, who was chasing Terumi Meri, was furious. "Damn, you useless guys. If I had known this would happen, I shouldn't have brought you three with me." As he spoke, he swung the big sword Samehada in his hand vigorously and slashed at Terumi Meri fiercely. Unfortunately, Terumi Meri was agile and easily dodged this fierce attack. Boom. The barbed Samehada missed and immediately split a deep pit with a diameter of more than 1 meter on the ground. At this time, Terumi Meri, who was already exhausted and panting, secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Because of the memory of her previous life, she immediately absorbed the rich combat experience she had accumulated in the past and easily reached the level of a Jonin. Unfortunately, due to the age limit of her body, the amount of chakra was completely insufficient, so she could only reach this level. She happened to face the Zigguishin Puffer demon holding the big sword Samehada. Originally, she could easily deal with any other ninja sword user. But the big sword Samehada in this person's hand has the ability to devour chakra, which is extremely restrained against ninjutsu type ninjas. And she happened to be better at ninjutsu, so she had no room to play against this person and could only be chased away. If it weren't for the many loyal subordinates who helped to resist, she would probably have died under the big sword Samehada at this moment. But even so, she was forced into desperate situations several times in the fierce battle of one day and one night, and was surrounded by danger. Now, the arrival of reinforcement can finally make her feel relieved. However, the Watermelon Mountain Puffer Ghost is not a guy who gives up so easily. Seeing that Terumi Meri's body is flexible and his physical strength is seriously depleted, and he can't catch up at all, he completely gave up the idea of continuing to use swordsmanship. Then, he put Samehada on his back, absorbed it with chakra, and then quickly used both hands to make seals to condense the chakra in his long orange hair. Not good. Knowing that something was wrong, Terumi Meri immediately rushed towards a boulder not far away. At this time, her chakra was almost exhausted, and she could not use a strong defensive spell to resist the opponent's attack. She could only use natural cover to dodge the next attack. However, the great consumption of physical strength made her speed far less than her prime. Before she could hide behind the boulder, the Watermelon Mountain Puffer Demon had already completed his spell. Ninjutsu, Needlehead 1000 books. I saw that the long hair on his waist stood up like steel needles, becoming sharp and hard, and then suddenly shot out. In an instant, a burst of orange rainstorm rose into the sky, covering the weak figure of Meditarumi. It's bad. Seeing this, Meditarumi couldn't help but feel depressed. Because of the arrival of reinforcement, she was a little too relaxed and misjudged her own situation, so this mistake occurred. Helplessly, she could only squat down with her head in her hands, curled up into a ball, and tried her best to protect her vitals and reduce her attack surface. Her mind was extremely clear at this moment. As long as she didn't hit her vitals, this move couldn't kill her. However, at this moment, a young voice came from not far away. Earth style, Earth flow while a young mist ninja pressed his hands on the ground and continuously injected chakra into the ground. He immediately saw the soil around Terumi Medi rolled up and turned into an inverted bowl that quickly covered her. Swish, swish, swish. The countless orange hairs like steel needles kept falling, but they could not penetrate the thick soil at all and were completely blocked outside. Damn it. Seeing the duck in his mouth fly away, Zigguishin Puffer Ghost was so angry that his lungs were about to explode. However, it was not just these that made him angry. 5 young jonin had surrounded him, completely cutting off his possibility of continuing to pursue Terumi Medi. You damn guys, I will not let this matter go. Zigguishin Puffer Ghost suddenly pulled out Samehada and swept it hard, immediately forcing the 5 people back, and then took the opportunity to rush out of the encirclement and prepare to escape. Chapter 38, Kisame appears. The 5 young jonins were ready to chase them, but suddenly a thin figure rushed out from the front, holding a long sword, and rushed straight towards Zigguishin Puffer Ghost. Dear Puffer Ghost, I'm here to take back my beloved treasure. With a sneer, the man slashed at Zigguishin Puffer Ghost. Is it you? Zigguishin Puffer Ghost was shocked and had already recognized the young face that looked like a shark. It was Ashigaki Kisame, the second successor of the big sword Samehada after him, and also the enemy who killed him in his previous life. At this moment, the enemies met, and naturally they were particularly jealous. I will kill you, the traitor. The Puffer Ghost shouted angrily, and immediately clenched the Samehada in his hand and slashed it. Clang. Samehada, which was covered with barbs, was extremely hard, and Kisame's long sword was immediately broken into 2 pieces when it slashed on it. Even he himself could not dodge in time, and was scratched by the barbs on the Samehada sword, leaving several wounds. Seeing this, the Pufferfish Ghost immediately wanted to make persistent efforts and further expand the victory, but Kisame did not give him a chance at all. He only showed a playful smile and hurriedly retreated. Want to escape? Don't you think it's too late? The Pufferfish Ghost shouted angrily and prepared to chase. However, at this moment, the 5 young jonin behind him caught up again and launched a swift attack on him. Perhaps because they were afraid of Samehada's ability to absorb chakra, no one used ninjutsu, and all chose physical skills for close range attacks. Unfortunately, although the Zigguishin Pufferfish Ghost looked bulky and not flexible enough, in fact, he was able to become a ninja swordsman, so his swordsmanship attainments were naturally not bad. His swordsmanship skills were enough to make up for his own bulky defects. Get out! He shouted violently, made a beautiful sword flower, and then turned Samehada over and chopped it hard behind him. Ding. With the extremely long and huge blade of Samehada, he slashed 5 people with one blow, and with just one blow, he chopped off the weapons of 5 people at the same time, knocking them back. Fortunately, the 5 people were all senior ninjas, and they were not easy to deal with. The moment they found that their weapons were broken, they deliberately avoided their vital points. Although they suffered a loss, it was not enough to endanger their lives. However, the target of the pufferfish demon was obviously not them. After repelling the 5 people with one blow, he focused his attention on Kisame, who was not far away. Just as he was about to chase, the Samehada in his hand suddenly became restless, and the barb suddenly stood up and kept shaking. Hey, what's wrong with you? The pufferfish demon was very nervous. It was the first time he saw Samehada like this. Unlike the other 6 ninja swords, Samehada is the most unique one. Because it is made from a parasitic fish on the body of the 3-tailed beast, it has a complete life, and is a living thing. However, Samehada did not speak, but conveyed a feeling of rejection and disgust to him through the flow of chakra. Hey, what are you doing? Feeling its emotional changes, the pufferfish ghost became more and more nervous. Before he could figure out the problem, Samehada had already begun to struggle violently, twisting the handle desperately, trying to get rid of the pufferfish ghost's control. Seeing this situation, the pufferfish ghost was not willing to let go. Without Samehada, his combat effectiveness would inevitably decrease a lot. Especially in this situation, where powerful enemies are surrounding him, he needs to rely on Samehada to leave safely. Unfortunately, Samehada was determined to reject him, and immediately countless barbs grew from the handle of the knife, piercing the palm of the pufferfish ghost's hand. Caught off guard, the pufferfish ghost screamed in pain and couldn't help but let go of the handle. At this time, Samehada, which fell to the ground, twisted the barbed blade and happily crawled towards Kisame not far away. It tasted the familiar chakra again. Compared to the pufferfish ghost, it liked Kisame's chakra more, so it wanted to go to Kisame's side. At this time, seeing Samehada crawling towards Kisame, the pufferfish ghost finally understood everything. Kisame was scratched by his blow just now completely on purpose, just to let his chakra be absorbed by Samehada, and awaken Samehada's memory of him as the successor. Now the two successors meet, Samehada chooses Kisame, and gives up on him. Damn it, you are mine. The pufferfish ghost was furious, and pounced on Samehada on the ground again. However, Kisame, who came for Samehada, would naturally not let him take Samehada back again. Don't even think about it. He rushed out in one step, and grabbed Samehada as well. Unfortunately, Samehada's original body was a fish after all, not a land animal, so it crawled very slowly on the ground. Before it could get away from the puffer ghost, it was caught up again. Seeing that it was too late, Kisame quickly formed a seal and cast a spell. Water style, water same bullet technique. His cheeks bulged first, and then he spit out a stream of blue water. Then, the water flow changed again, turning into a blue shark, and flying towards the puffer ghost. He believed that, since Samehada had chosen him, he would naturally not turn around and help the puffer ghost. Because the distance was closer, the puffer ghost, who had already caught up with Samehada, grabbed the handle of the knife again. Unfortunately, Samehada was like a kitten with its fur exploded. The moment it noticed his approach, it immediately raised its barbs again. The puffer ghost grabbed it, and was stabbed with blood on his hands, and he couldn't pick it up at all. Seeing that the blue shark was getting closer and closer to him, the puffer ghost had to temporarily give up the idea of taking back Samehada and immediately retreated to the side. Boom. The blue shark landed right after it, smashing into the spot where the pufferfish ghost had just stopped, and in just a moment, a large pit with a diameter of more than 2 meters was smashed out. After successfully forcing the pufferfish ghost back, Kisame finally arrived next to Samehada, and was about to reunite with this old friend. Just as he was trying to suppress his excitement, and stretched his right hand towards the handle of the knife on the ground, a dangerous breath attacked him from behind. He knew very well that, if he insisted on picking up Samehada on the ground, he would definitely not have time to avoid the attack from behind. Helplessly, he could only choose to give up Samehada and retreat in time to avoid it. Whoosh! With the sound of breaking through the air, an extremely slender weapon like a large sewing needle fell next to Samehada, and nailed it to the spot where he had just stopped. Oh no, it's longsword sewing needle. Recognizing the weapon at a glance, Kisame's pupils shrank, and he quickly retreated several steps back, completely away from the large sewing needle. Because, the real danger is not the sewing needle, but the sharp steel wire connected to the tail of the sewing needle. The steel wire is as thin as a hair, and there is no chakra fluctuation, so it is difficult to be detected in the battle. More importantly, the steel wire is extremely sharp, and it can cut iron like mud. In his previous life, he had witnessed with his own eyes that Kurizen Kishimaru used that kind of steel wire to easily cut a hapless hostile ninja into several large pieces. Now he is unarmed and has not figured out the location of the steel wire. Once he is entangled by the steel wire, the result can be imagined. Chapter 39, Escape and Panic. Whoosh. However, before Kisame could regain his footing, a slight sound of breaking through the air suddenly came from all around. He looked closely, and saw a faint black line around him shrinking rapidly with himself as the center. Not good. Kisame was startled, and immediately recognized that it was the steel wire used for sewing needles. I don't know when that guy Kurizen Kishimaru has used the steel wire to set a big trap around him. Damn it. He cursed inwardly and jumped up immediately. And the moment he jumped out, the steel wire instantly retracted. If he found it a little later, he would definitely be tied up by the steel wire. But just when he thought he was safe, a terrifying pressure suddenly came from above. Is it you who killed the old ghost once? With a sneer, Kisame saw a huge blade like an axe chop down from above his head. It was the blunt knife douge, a terrifying weapon that claimed to be able to break through all defenses. Facing this attack, Kisame was not too confident and immediately made a hand seal. Swish. The axe fell instantly, splitting Kisame in half from head to toe. However, Taosanobeto, who fell right behind him, found that there was no blood on his blade. Wow. Just as he was wondering, Kisame, who had been split in half, suddenly turned into two pools of clear water and fell to the ground. Water clone. He immediately understood that Kisame had just used the water clone as a substitute and performed the substitution technique to escape. After quickly scanning the surroundings, he finally saw the young shark face on the ground not far away. You are indeed quite capable. No wonder the old ghost fell into your hands. After landing smoothly, Taosanobeto looked at Kisame seriously and said, being able to use a water clone in such a short time and then replace it with the substitution technique, such an ability is definitely not something that an ordinary jonin can achieve. Kisame was not modest when he saw this and replied coldly, a new generation replaces the old, and the old antiques that cannot keep up with the times should be swept into the garbage dump of history. However, although he looked down on these predecessors, he did not rashly launch an attack again. The three ninja swordsmen joined forces, and he had to be treated with caution even in his prime. What's more, his body has not yet grown up, and he still looks like a teenager. He doesn't have Samehuda on his hands, and his combat power is far less than his peak. At this time, with the help of his companions forcing Kisame to retreat, the puffer ghost finally succeeded in taking back Samehuda. However, because Samehuda was extremely repulsive to him, he couldn't use it, even if he took it back by force, so he could only seal it up temporarily and carry it on his back. Old ghost, the situation is getting worse and worse. If you still want to continue, I won't accompany you. Kurisei Kishimaru said in a low voice while guarding. That's right, I don't want to fight anymore. Tankusanobeto also echoed. With the addition of reinforcement from Meditarumi's side, the whole situation was reversed in an instant. They had fought for a day and a night, and their physical strength was greatly depleted. If they continued to fight, they would probably die here. Zigwashin Puffer Ghost understood the current situation, but if he could not kill Terumi Medi this time, it would be even more difficult to kill her when she returned to the Hidden Mist Village. He was very unwilling to give up. However, after seeing the young Miss Ninjas gradually surrounding them, he still made a decision. Retreat, or retreat. He loudly issued the final retreat order, and then chose the weakest point of the encirclement and rushed over. The other two ninja swordsmen followed closely behind, and also killed them. For a moment, the three of them joined forces and no one could stop them. They quickly broke through the encirclement and rushed out. Forget it, don't chase them, let them go. Seeing that everyone was chasing them, Terumi Medi hurriedly stopped them. She knew the strength of the three ninja swordsmen very well. If they forced them to stay, they would have to pay a considerable price. The current situation of the Hidden Mist Village was unclear, and she didn't want to consume her strength here. Especially since most of the people who supported her were still relatively young and had room to grow. It would be a pity to sacrifice them here in vain. After hearing her order, everyone gave up the idea of chasing and could only watch unwillingly as the three ninja swordsmen fled with all their subordinates. At the same time, many senior ninjas such as Taketori Shinsuke also rushed to the battlefield and gathered around Eliuze. Are you okay, sir? Seeing his pale face, everyone couldn't help but ask. Fortunately, he won't die for the time being. Eliuze replied with a wry smile, and then said, where is that guy Murishinpachi? Did you kill him? Seeing only Taketori Shinsuke and others, but not Murishinpachi, he couldn't help but make such a guess. I'm sorry. Taketori Shinsuke shook his head and said helplessly, after seeing King bring back a lot of reinforcement, that guy decisively ran away. We couldn't stop him, even if we wanted to. Then, what are the casualties on your side? Eliuse asked with a little worry. 2 Jonins died in the battle, 2 were seriously injured, and the others were more or less slightly injured. Taketori Shinsuke was in an extremely heavy mood. Jonin is the pillar of a tribe. They had already sacrificed a lot in the previous war with Konoha, and now 2 more have died, which is really not a happy thing. Eliuse was also in a heavy mood after hearing this, but he could only choose to accept it. This is the fate of ninjas, and it is also the cruelty of the times. It is difficult for them who make a living by killing to have a good end. My lord, what about you? What are the casualties? Another Jonin of the same tribe asked. It's not clear yet, we need to gather everyone to count. Eliuse shook his head. At this time, the war was over, and all the tribesmen were tacitly gathering here. But because many tribesmen were injured, the speed was not fast, and it was difficult to gather them all in a short time. At this moment, a noisy sound came from the right. Everyone looked back, and saw the young Terumi Mei coming over with a group of Miss Ninjas. Although she was only 12 or 13 years old at this time, and still looked like a girl, she had a strong aura, and everyone followed her with respect in their eyes. Many Taketori ninjas didn't take her too seriously. After all, during the era when Terumi Mei was in power, their Taketori clan had long been extinct, and they had no intersection with this later 5th generation Mizukage. But after seeing the expressions of many Miss Ninjas behind her, they had to put away their contempt. This pretty girl is not as simple as she seems. Excuse me, friends of the Taketori clan, who is in charge now? Terumi Mei asked politely. Hearing this, many Taketori Jonin hesitated for a moment, and then all set their eyes on Eliuse. Seeing this, Eliuse didn't say anything more polite, and immediately strode out of the crowd under the gaze of many of his fellow clansmen. It's me, Taketori Eliuse. Looking at the girl in front of him, he reported his name seriously. Chapter 40 Meeting the 5 Generations. You? Terumi was very surprised to see Rokuze coming out. The 2 were of the same age, only 12 or 13 years old, but she was able to command so many Miss Ninjas, because she was the 5th Mizukage in her previous life. And these young people were all her supporters, so she could rule them as an underage girl. But she didn't understand why Rokuze could also rule these Taketori. Seeing the confusion in Terumi's eyes, Rokuze smiled and said, in my previous life, I was lucky enough to survive this war against Konoha. However, I was also seriously injured, and became disabled and wandered outside, and never returned to the village. Because of this, I avoided the subsequent disaster of extermination of the clan, and lived until the 4th Ninja World War. Hearing this, Terumi immediately understood everything. With such a previous life experience, if he were put in the current Taketori, he would be an experienced elder, and it was no wonder that they chose this one to take charge. She was originally troubled by how to communicate with this group of unruly Taketori ninjas, but with such an elder around, things became much easier. Thank you for the help of the Taketori clan. Terumi bowed solemnly to the Taketori clan and said seriously, if you hadn't rescued King in time, and held back Miri Shinpochi, I'm afraid we would all die here today. Without the help of the Taketori clan, King would not have been able to bring back so many reinforcement alive, and the result can be imagined. You're welcome. Rokuze smiled and waved his hand, and said straight to the point, the reason why we help you is also for other purposes. Oh. Terumi was very surprised to hear this, and asked with a smile, excuse me, what do you want from me? However, the many followers standing behind her were extremely angry. How dare you? How dare you negotiate with the Mizukage-sama? Although the current Terumi Mei is still a minor, and is not the stunning strong woman in their memory, in their hearts, this one is already the same as that one. They are willing to sacrifice everything for her. But the Taketori clan is not ambitious and dares to ask for rewards, which really makes them angry. However, Terumi Mei was not angry, but raised her hand to stop them. Tell me about it. She gestured to Eliuse. Eliuse smiled slightly, and slowly paced on the spot and said, I believe many people know the contradiction between my Taketori clan and the current Kirigakure. Especially in our previous life, there was a precedent of rebellion and turmoil. Now, it seems that the top leaders of Kirigakure will find it difficult to believe us again. Even if we are not purged by them, the days to come will probably become more and more difficult. In the end, our ending may still be no different from our previous life. Hearing these words, many ninjas on Terumi Mei's side who were originally indignant nodded silently. The Taketori clan is so rebellious that they are bound to be exterminated. Lyuze continued, in order to avoid such an outcome, I have thought about it for a long time and finally came up with a solution. We have decided to offer our strength to you and support you to regain the throne of Mizukage. He stopped and looked at the girl in front of him seriously. So that's how it is. Terumi suddenly realized, as the 5th generation Mizukage in her previous life, she naturally has a certain popular support in the village and has the conditions to ascend to the throne again. However, as the reform leader of Kirigakure, her political views are destined to be at odds with the current Kirigakure high-level officials. If Kirigakure wants to regain power, it will inevitably experience a great turmoil and face a major reshuffle of the old and new forces. In this case, if the Taketori clan switches to her, they can naturally join the reshuffle and transfer the contradictions by taking advantage of the conflict between the old and new forces to avoid being targeted and excluded by the entire Kirigakure village. When she succeeds in ascending to the throne, the Taketori clan can also take this opportunity to return to Kirigakure with a legitimate reason. This move is extremely brilliant and a brilliant political investment. What if I refuse? Terumi blinked her beautiful left eye and asked playfully. Then we can only support other people who aspire to be the Mizukage. Lyuze narrowed his eyes and replied without showing any weakness. He originally had ideas about the position of Mizukage, but the reputation of the Taketori clan in Kirigakure was not very good. In addition to the influence of the rebellion in the previous life, most people in Kirigakure would look at them with a tinted eye. More importantly, there is also a very popular form of 5th generation Mizukage. In this case, he has no chance of ascending to that position. So, he can only choose to support others. Hearing this, Terumi smiled and waved her hand and said, it's just a joke, don't take it seriously. Of course I would love to get the support of the Taketori clan. However, you can be their master, but can you be the master of the entire Taketori clan? As she said that, she gestured to the many Taketori clan members behind Lyuze. In this war between the Land of Water and the Land of Fire, Kirigakure village opened up 3 fronts along the coast. The group led by Lyuze is only a part of the entire Taketori clan's external combatants, not all of them, and not including the Taketori clan left in the rear base of the water country. Don't worry, I will convince them. Unless they can find a better solution than mine. Lyuze replied with a serious face. Then I'll be waiting for your good news, Lyuze genin. Terumi Mei smiled with a hint of playfulness, emphasizing the word genin. At such a close distance, she could clearly sense that, because of the memory of the previous life, this person had extraordinary knowledge, but his own strength was not strong. Even after gaining the memory and combat experience of the previous life, he was still a weak genin. You know, in addition to the inability to quickly increase the amount of chakra, a considerable number of Miss Ninjas have significantly improved their own strength because of their rich combat experience in the previous life. This person's strength is indeed a bit weak. Seeing that Terumi Mei was joking, Lyuze was also helpless, but he could only pinch his nose and admit it. He is indeed too weak now. To gain the right to speak in the clan, a certain level of strength is required as a foundation. Otherwise, no one would like to be told what to do by a genin. At this moment, a dissatisfied young voice suddenly came from outside the crowd. Hey, Ayo Jonin, you haven't done what you promised me yet. Everyone looked in the direction of the voice, only to see a young man with a shark face slowly approaching. Kisame Hashigaki. Rokuze's pupils shrank as he recognized the person. Although Kisame Hashigaki is still an underage child like Terumi, he still looks 70% similar to the adult Kisame Hashigaki in his memory, so he quickly recognized him. Chapter 41. Kisame is shaken. So, you know him too? Terumi looked back at Rokuze. Not only do I know him, I also know that he has a lot of top secret information that only the 5K know. Rokuze showed a playful smile. This is also the reason why he dared to boast in front of Terumi and convince the Taketori clan. Although everyone is reborn now, they know a lot of information that they should not know at this stage, based on their memories of their past lives. But everyone has limited energy and limited sources of information, so even if they have memories of their past lives, it is impossible for anyone to know more than him. After all, he has been looking down on the development of the story of the entire ninja world from the outside from the perspective of a bystander. In terms of intelligence, he still has a huge advantage. It seems that your weight in my heart should be raised a little more. Meditarumi blinked at him, then turned around and whispered to King beside her, "What did you promise that guy?" King smiled bitterly and said, "When I went to look for reinforcement before, I happened to meet Shigeki Kisame and told him about what happened here. He agreed to reinforce, but the condition is that we cooperate to help seize the big sword Sumehada. The result, you have seen it, sir. The seizure of Sumehada failed, and Kisame failed to achieve his goal." As he said that, he couldn't help but spread his hands, with a helpless look on his face. Meditarumi then looked at the shark face that was walking over, and said seriously, "Then what do you want? As compensation, I will try my best to meet your requirements." Hearing this, Shigeki Kisame stopped, kept a safe distance, and said with a smile, "I only want that Sumehada. I don't care about anything else." Meditarumi saw it and immediately suggested, "How about this? You come back with me and help me regain the position of Mizukichi. Zigwish and Puffer Ghost and the others are obviously not on the same path as me. There will definitely be a chance for us to fight again in the future. When I get Sumehada, I will officially give it to you." In her memory, Shigeki Kisame was a very powerful ninja, but unfortunately he later defected from Kirigakure and joined the Akatsuki organization, becoming an enemy of the 5 major ninja villages. If possible, she wanted to take this opportunity to recruit him to Kirigakure to prevent the outflow of talents. As expected of someone who used to be Mizukichi, Kisame immediately applauded and laughed. Such a broad mind and demeanor is much stronger than the 3rd generation. Based on his understanding of the 3rd generation, he would definitely not tolerate his existence of rebelling against his superiors. But unfortunately, I have no interest in Kirigakure for a long time. I don't want to participate in the political game between you. I don't care who of you is Mizukichi. I just want to get back Big Sword Sumehada." Kisame added again. "So, you still plan to betray Kirigakure?" Meditarumi narrowed her eyes slightly. Kisame spread his hands and said with a fake smile, "You don't have to say it so harshly. I just don't want to get involved in your dirty business. I'll just stay neutral." Hearing this, Lyuze seemed to remember something and immediately asked tentatively, "I say, you guys are not still thinking about following that person, are you? I can tell you very clearly, the one you used to follow has changed. Now he has completely denied everything he has done and turned over a new leaf. Your loyalty has no meaning to him anymore." "What?" Kisame was shocked. Because he died early in his previous life, he didn't know what happened afterwards. But soon, he calmed down again and said with a hint of murderous intent, "Do you know what you are talking about, young genin?" "Of course I know." Lyuze was not afraid and said seriously, "He deceived you in the name of Uchiha Madara. His real name should be Uchiha Obito. However, in the last battle, he came to his senses and denied everything he had done before. If you don't believe it, you can slowly investigate and confirm this matter. Before that, I suggest you don't rush to make any decisions. After all, you don't want your life to be as meaningless as your last life, right?" Shigeki Kisame's strength is very strong, especially in the water environment. It can be comparable to a tailed beast. Such a strong man, he still hopes to persuade him as much as possible to keep him in Kirigakure. If he is allowed to defect again, the loss for Kirigakure will be too great. Hearing such words, Shigeki Kisame's will can't help but waver. Because life cannot be repeated, after he killed his companions one after another in his previous life, he could not suppress the sorrow in his heart, and he developed disgust for this hypocritical world, and finally left Kirigakure. But now, time has gone back, and everything is over again. He no longer has to kill his companions, and everything has new possibilities. He raised his head, looked at Lyuze from a distance and asked, "Excuse me, what is your name?" "Taketori Lyuze." Lyuze once again solemnly reported his real name. Very good, I will remember you. Kisame nodded and said seriously, I will slowly investigate everything you said. If everything is really as you said, then I really should plan a new life. After that, he waved his hand and immediately prepared to turn around and leave. Meditarumi saw this and shouted, don't you want Sumehada anymore? Kisame didn't turn around, but waved his hand with his back to the group and said, Sumehada, I will go get it myself, don't bother you. If Lady Terumi Medi really wants to repay my help this time, then don't put me on the wanted list for taking Sumehada. As he spoke, he had already used the instant body technique to disappear from the spot, and only the low voice was still echoing around. Seeing this, Meditarumi turned around and said to Rokuze, do you want to go back together? It may be safer if we go together. It is unknown whether the previous robbery and killing of the 4 ninja swordsmen was their own decision or the instruction of the top leaders of Kirigakure. At this moment, the way back to Kirigakure is no longer safe. Whether it is for her or for this group of bamboo cutter clan who have a precedent of rebellion. With pleasure, Rokuze smiled and nodded. Facing Terumi Medi's invitation, he naturally would not refuse. By the way, he could also build closer relations and pave the way for the bamboo clan to join him. However, before that, we still need to clean up the battlefield and count the casualties. Liuze glanced around in a signal. The ninjutsu still had the ability to move gathered together, but those who were seriously injured and unable to move were still lying on the ground. In addition, they also needed to clean up the bodies. Otherwise, if they were left here, it would be likely to breed an epidemic. Of course, the same for us. Terumi Medi nodded and then issued the order to clean up the battlefield. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 42 Armistice Resolution. Soon, everyone cleaned up the entire battlefield. Liuze also completed the inventory of his team. Among them, nearly 30 people died, including 2 jonin. At this point, the team, which was already small in number, lost nearly 1/3 of its members, leaving less than 70 people. As for the rest, they were all injured, especially a dozen with serious injuries, completely lost their ability to move, and could only move with the help of others. Looking at the wounded appearance of many of his fellow tribesmen, Liuze felt very guilty, but he did not regret it, because he knew that life was fragile. Even the Taketori clan, who were good at fighting, would fall on the battlefield. When he chose to help Meditarumi, this result was destined to happen. And what he had to do was to live up to the trust of his tribe members and lead the Taketori clan to open up a new future. In this way, those dead fellow tribesmen would not sacrifice in vain. At this time, King came over and gestured. Excuse me, are you all from the Taketori clan ready? We are going to set off again. Yes. No problem. Liuze nodded and then gestured for everyone to get ready to set off. Considering that everyone was very afraid of their Taketori clan, Liuze was also very tactful and did not bring many of his fellow clansmen to mix with Terumi Medi and her group, but directly followed the group behind Terumi Medi and her group, completely separated from them. However, even so, while they were on the road, they could still feel the defensive and suspicious eyes coming from the front from time to time. Sir, these guys don't trust us at all. Let's go separately from them. Taketori Shinsuke stepped forward quickly and complained to Liuze in a low voice. Don't be angry, Lord Shinsuke. Liuze sighed and patiently comforted. You know, the current situation of Kirigakure is unclear. The Watermelon Mountain Puffer Ghost dared to blatantly rob and kill the former 5th generation Mizukichi. There is no guarantee that they will not attack us again. Act with Terumi Medi and her group. Even if the Kirigakure wants to attack us, they will have to be cautious, and our safety can be guaranteed. Compared with their team of less than 70 people, Terumi Medi's followers have more than 500 people. Such a force is far stronger than them, so it is naturally safer to travel with them. Well, okay. Taketori Shinsuke thought about it and had no choice but to accept it. After hearing what Liuze said, the other Taketori clan members did not complain anymore and followed behind silently. completely ignoring the defense and distrust of the Miss Ninjas in front. At the same time, some Miss Ninjas also found Terumi Mei. My lord, are you really going to accept the Taketori clan's service? An older Jonin asked to confirm. Terumi Mei smiled back and said seriously, if that person can really convince the entire Taketori clan, I certainly don't mind accepting their service. No one will complain that they have too many cards in their hands. Especially the Taketori clan is still a very powerful card. But, although this card is strong enough, it also has many problems. The older Jonin was very worried. Terumi Mei waved her hand and said as she hurried on her way, since everyone has been reborn, why can't we give them a chance too? I believe that they should learn how to restrain their temper after dying once. The appearance of Liuze surprised and delighted her. Such a person, in terms of knowledge and wisdom, far exceeded her inherent impression of the Taketori clan. If such a person led the Taketori clan, perhaps the Taketori clan could really transform and be reborn. However, there was one thing that she felt very strange. It was incredible that she had not heard any rumors about such a genius in her previous life. But what if they still can't change? The older Jonin asked again. Then you can't blame me. Terumi Mei put away her smile and her eyes became cold. As the 5th generation Mizukage in her previous life, she also experienced the darkest and most chaotic era of Kirigakure. She has never been a soft-hearted person. Since the adults know the situation, we don't need to say anything more. The older Jonin slowed down and followed Terumi Mei again. In Kirigakure village, the 3rd generation Mizukage also knew about the 4 ninja swordsmen who robbed and killed Terumi Mei. How dare you? Do you still have me, the Mizukage, in your eyes? He immediately convened a meeting of senior executives and roared angrily at many senior executives. He knew very well that, if there were no support, the 4 ninja swordsmen would never have the courage to rob and kill the former 5th generation Mizukage. However, many high-level officials seemed to not care about his anger at all, and all sat quietly in their seats with their eyes closed. For a long time, until he could no longer scold, he collapsed in his seat, too tired to say a word. Until then, an elder slowly opened his eyes and said lightly, 3rd generation, now is not the time to argue about this matter, right? I think we should sign a peace treaty with Konoha as soon as possible to officially end this war. In this way, we can have the energy to focus on dealing with the troubles inside Kirigakure. Kirigakure village is isolated overseas. From a geographical point of view, it should not be afraid of the risk of being captured by other ninja villages. But there is always a chance. They must ensure that the external environment is stable before they can free up their hands to solve internal problems. In this way, they can prevent others from taking advantage of the situation and falling into a dangerous situation. Seeing that everyone completely ignored his previous questioning, the 3rd generation was extremely angry, but he could do nothing. Okay, let the people in the communications department contact Konoha as soon as possible and invite the 3rd Hokage to discuss the truce. He closed his eyes and issued the order weakly. Then, another elder stood up and said seriously, 3rd Hokage, I have another important matter to report. I hope everyone can make a decision as soon as possible. What is it? The 3rd Hokage asked a little tiredly. The man said with a serious face, it's the little girl who was captured from Konoha. We originally planned to let her become the Three-Tails Jinchuriki. Now because of the memories of the previous life, our plan has been leaked. Do we still want her to become the Three-Tails Jinchuriki? No need. The 3rd Hokage waved his hand and said helplessly, we are already preparing for a truce. Letting her become the Three-Tails Jinchuriki has no meaning at all. What if she brings the Three Tails back again, or loses control in Kirigakure? Then our losses will be too great. With the truce as the premise, other matters interfering with the truce are redundant. Hearing this, the man continued, in addition, I also learned an important piece of information from other people. Among the key figures who triggered the 4th Ninja World War, there was a guy named Uchiha Obito. He was extremely powerful and almost single-handedly rewrote the future of the entire ninja world. And one of the important reasons why he triggered the 4th Ninja World War was the little girl we captured from Konoha this time. Chapter 43 High-Level Meeting. Rewriting the ninja world with one's own strength? Are you kidding? The 3rd Mizukage was shocked. We are not kidding. This is the real information we have obtained after many verifications. The man looked serious and continued. However, he was able to do that not entirely by relying on his own strength, but mainly because he mastered the legendary power of the 6 paths. Without the blessing of the power of the 6 paths, he is just a stronger ninja, and is not enough to fight against any large ninja village. The power of the 6 paths. The third was more and more horrified. He believed that these old guys would not joke about such things. The legendary power of the 6 paths must really exist. It's just that the appearance of that mythical thing is really hard to calm down. After a long time, he calmed down his restless mind, and the third generation narrowed his eyes and asked, "But, what do you mean by suddenly bringing this up?" The man said seriously, "I want to ask, how are you going to deal with that little girl? After all, if this matter is not handled properly, the disaster of the previous life may happen again." Hearing this, many high-level people immediately discussed it. Soon, everyone was divided into 2 factions on how to deal with the little girl. The conservatives wanted to let the little girl go as a gesture of friendship, and also save a big trouble. The radicals wanted to imprison the little girl, so as to hold Uchiha Obito hostage, and then spy on the power of the 6 paths. Seeing that the crowd was getting more and more excited, an old conservative stood up and shouted, "Do you know what's going on now? The situation in Kirigakure is already precarious. If we mess with that evil star again, the entire Kirigakure may be destroyed." However, the radicals did not show weakness. An old man also stood up and sneered, "It is precisely because the situation in Kirigakure is precarious that we need a stronger force to suppress the situation. If we can use this to control that Uchiha Obito, we can have another trump card in our hands to deal with those unforeseen difficulties." Unfortunately, the conservatives were not willing to listen to such remarks. Neither side could convince the other, and the quarrel became more intense. Seeing that the situation was getting worse and worse, and everyone was more likely to fight, the third generation could no longer sit still. "Quiet, everyone, be quiet." With his roar, everyone finally quieted down. What everyone is worried about is nothing more than the power of 6 paths. The third Hokage paused and asked seriously, "How difficult is it to obtain the power of 6 paths?" Only by figuring this out first can he decide how to deal with the matter of Uchiha Obito. Hearing this, the Minister of Intelligence stood up and said seriously, "Based on our comprehensive analysis of the rebirth memories of other people, we can roughly know that the power of the 6 paths mainly refers to the 10 tails. The combined power of the 9-tailed beasts can revive the original tailed beast, the 10 tails, and then combined with the eye of 6 paths, it is the power of the 6 paths. So that's how it is." The Sandaime breathed a sigh of relief and sneered, "Gathering the 9-tailed beasts is not easy in itself. In addition, there are precedents. I'm afraid the entire ninja world will be on guard against those who are interested in collecting tailed beasts again. I think we don't have to worry too much about him being able to obtain the power of the 6 paths again. And without the power of the 6 paths, he is just a powerful ninja. It is impossible for him to fight against our entire Kirigakure." Hearing this, the radicals' eyes suddenly lit up, and they asked tentatively, "So, Lord Mizukage has decided to keep that little girl to threaten Uchiha Obito?" "Yeah." The Sandaime nodded, and said without a trace of emotion, "Let's leave this matter to the Minister of Anbu. You are the most experienced in doing this kind of thing." As he said this, he looked at the middle-aged man who had been silent in the corner of the conference table. "Okay." The Anbu minister responded without refusing. After hearing the analysis of the third generation, the conservatives wanted to object, but gave up after thinking about it. "What about the 3 tails?" The intelligence minister looked at the third generation and continued, "That little girl can no longer be the 3 tails Jinchuriki, but the power of the 3 tails cannot be shelved any longer. It should be used as soon as possible. Especially in the future, the situation will become more and more chaotic. We need the power of the 3 tails." The third generation did not think much and immediately said, "Let Yagura go. He was the perfect 3 tails Jinchuriki in his previous life. This time, no one is more suitable than him to master the power of the 3 tails." Yagura, the successor he originally placed the greatest hope on, did not expect that he would end up being controlled by others, and died tragically at a young age. However, this time they were reborn. They all had the opportunity to rewrite the future. The same mistake must not be allowed to happen again. Hearing such a decision, many senior executives nodded in unison without objection. Indeed, no one is more suitable to be the Three-Tails Jinchuriki than Yagura. Suddenly, there was another discordant questioning voice in the conference room. Mizukichi, you won't forget the Snow Clan, Wind Clan, and Taketori Clan who have a record of rebellion, right? Next, how do you plan to deal with them? The Minister of Security asked. Hearing this, everyone became excited again. These three families are bloodline limit families with a very long heritage. The power of the bloodline limit, coupled with family heritage, makes the bloodline limit ninja much stronger than ordinary ninjas of the same level. Therefore, the bloodline limit family has also become the pillar of the village. However, in their past life memories, these three families have a record of rebellion, which once plunged the hidden mist village into war. Now, although they have not rebelled yet, it is really hard to be at ease. The Minister of Security in the radical faction immediately expressed his opinion. In my opinion, we should get rid of them as soon as possible. Keeping them is also a hidden danger. No. The Sandai immediately objected and then said, they haven't rebelled yet, maybe they are also hesitating whether to rebel or not. But if we take action at this point, it will force them to rebel completely, and the situation in Kirigakure will be further deteriorated. We must not act rashly on this matter. The Minister of Security wanted to refute, but gave up after thinking about it. As the Sandai said, if the three families don't want to rebel this time, they will make things out of control if they act rashly. Then, the Sandai said, however, although we will not act rashly against them, we have to be on guard and must strengthen surveillance of the three families. If there is any unusual movement, you must report it immediately. As he said, he looked at the Minister of Anbu. Surveillance and intelligence gathering is the job of the Anbu. Don't worry, I will arrange people to strengthen surveillance after the meeting. The Minister of Anbu nodded seriously. This matter is much more urgent than Uchiha Obito's matter. Do you have anything else to discuss? The third generation asked, looking at everyone. No. All the senior executives shook their heads. Then go get ready. Dismissed. The third generation waved his hand and dismissed everyone immediately. Everyone did not stay and disappeared to their seats. Chapter 44. The Troubles of Corpses. On the other side, Eliuze and his group followed behind Meditarumi and his group. After 3 days of trekking, they finally landed on the central island of the Land of Water. Although it is called an island, it is actually very large, 1/5 the size of the Land of Fire, about the same size as a miniature continent, and it is also the largest island in the entire Land of Water. Therefore, the central island is also the most prosperous and wealthy island in the entire Land of Water, and more than half of the population of the entire Land of Water gathers here. At this time, as the Mist Ninja troops on the three fronts gradually withdrew and gathered towards the central island, Eliuze and his group met more and more Mist Ninja along the way. Among them, he also met his fellow tribesmen who withdrew from another front. After some exchanges, they also chose to integrate into Eliuze's team. Of course, they did not explicitly express their willingness to obey Eliuze's dispatch like Taketori Shinsuke and his group, but Eliuze understood that they wanted to observe themselves to see if they were worthy of support as Shinsuke and his group said. However, Eliuze believed that they would be convinced by themselves and truly support themselves. It is worth mentioning that with the addition of these fellow tribesmen, Eliuze's team has also increased from less than 70 people to about 210 people. It seems that this group of his fellow tribesmen are lucky, and the battles on the front line are not so tragic, so the loss of personnel is not as huge as this. However, what really shocked Eliuze was Meditarumi. Because of her identity as the fifth generation of Mizukichi, and the reforms that have been deeply rooted in the hearts of the people, she has brought Kirigakure into a new era, and the younger generation has highly respected her. From the day they set out together, most of the young Kirigakure ninjas who retreated on the road chose to join Meditarumi's team. It was seen that it quickly expanded from a team of about 500 people, and by the time they landed on the central island, it had exceeded 1,500 people. Although these followers are very young, and even a large part of them are still at the level of genin. but as time goes by, they will become stronger and stronger, slowly becoming Chunin, Jonin, and becoming the most solid force in Kirigakure. It is no exaggeration to say that at this time, Terumi has become the spokesperson for the future of the entire Kirigakure, and the future of the entire Kirigakure is in her hands. Seeing such a huge team, Taketori Shinsuke whispered, "Lord Rokuze, I was skeptical about what you said about Terumi, but now it seems that you are right. With her prestige, she is more than qualified to become the Mizukage. But unfortunately, she is destined to be different from those old fools of the third generation. It will be difficult for her to become the Mizukage again." Another Taketori Jonin shook his head. "Isn't that just right?" Rokuze smiled and looked back at many of his fellow tribesmen and said, "It is precisely because she is different from those old guys that she is more likely to accept us. The power of our tribe will bring her strong support." Hearing this, many of the fellow tribesmen behind him nodded one after another. Even those who came later and were still observing Rokuze felt a little admiration. That's right. That's it. At this moment, they were full of confidence in Rokuze's plan. Afterwards, the group left the harbor and continued to move towards the depths of the central island. The hidden mist village is located in a deep mountain on the central island and is shrouded in thick fog all year round. Although the Taketori clan was expelled from Kirigakure, they did not go too far away. They just built a small village next to Kirigakure. Therefore, there was no problem for Rokuze to travel with Terumi and the others. On the way, Rokuze tentatively asked Taketori Shinsuke and other senior ninjas, if I compete for the position of the chief of the Taketori clan, will you support me?" Suddenly hearing his words, many senior ninjas behind him were speechless and didn't know how to answer. After a long time, Taketori Shinsuke, who was most familiar with Rokuze, whispered, "Sir, if you want to compete for the position of elder, we will definitely support you with all our strength, but the position of the chief, I think you should give up. It's not that we don't want to support you, but the rules of the clan don't allow it. Sir, you should give up." Hearing this, Rokuze couldn't help but frown. Of course, he knew the rules of the clan, that those who have awakened the corpse bone vein cannot serve as the chief. This was just a test for him. However, he also knew the intention of the ancestors to set this iron rule. This is due to the defects of the corpse bone vein bloodline limit itself, not the discrimination and suppression of the ancestors against the awakened corpse bone vein. Because the corpse bone vein is powerful, but it is accompanied by an extremely serious bloodline limit disease. This also makes it difficult for all the Taketori clan members to live for more than 15 years after awakening the corpse bone vein. If the corpse bone vein is overused, causing the bloodline limit disease to worsen further, the awakened bloodline limit will die faster. For example, the later orphan of the Taketori clan, Taketori Kimimaro, in order to help Orochimaru bring back Sasuke, he activated the corpse bone vein at all costs, and finally died directly on the battlefield at the age of 15. Because of this, in order to prevent the frequent replacement of the clan leader due to premature death, the ancestors set an iron rule that the corpse bone vein awakened person shall not take over the position of clan leader. Now, Liz has also awakened the corpse bone vein. If he recuperates well, he can only live to the age of 27 at most. With such a short lifespan, he is naturally unfit to take over the position of clan leader. After a long sigh, he asked everyone again, "It has been so many years, hasn't the clan studied how to solve the defects in our bloodline limit? Because this body only has memories of the clan until the age of 12, the experience is extremely limited, and it really doesn't know much about these important secrets." "Of course we are studying." Taketori Shinsuke nodded vigorously and replied seriously, "From ancient times to the present, we have been studying how to solve the defects in our bloodline limit. But unfortunately, we are only good at fighting, not good at human body and medical research. Naturally, the progress of this matter is very slow and limited, and this problem has not been solved so far. Then if I solve the defect problem of the corpse bone vein, you should no longer oppose me taking over the position of clan leader, right?" Liuze asked with a smile. Hearing this, not only Taketori Shinsuke, but also other fellow clan jonin who were relatively close could not help but cast astonished eyes. "Could it be that you have found a solution to this problem in your previous life, sir?" An older jonin of the same clan asked anxiously. No, no. Seeing how excited they were, Liuze waved his hands and said with a wry smile, in the previous life, my bamboo clan perished early, and later generations could not find suitable materials, even if they wanted to study it. How can there be a way to solve this kind of corpse bone vein defect? Chapter 45 Research and Planning. Even a research maniac like Orochimaru was ultimately unable to resolve the bloodline limit defect of the Shikotsu vein. If not, Kimimaro would not have died on the spot. Hearing Rokuze's words, the Taketori clan members could not help but become extremely disappointed. The Shikotsu vein certainly brought them powerful strength, but it also brought them the precursor of death. No one is willing to wait for death, and they also want to live forever and enjoy a good life. Seeing that everyone was in a low mood, Rokuze immediately smiled and comforted them. Please rest assured, I will definitely find a way to solve this problem. What are you going to do, sir? Taketori Shinsuke asked curiously. Rokuze said seriously, our clan is not good at medical treatment and human research, so it is naturally difficult to solve our own bloodline limit defects. So, we should leave professional matters to professionals. A group of warriors wanting to study human medicine is not reliable at all, and it is just a waste of time. Taketori Shinsuke immediately waved his hand and said, the clan has also trained professional medical ninjas, but they have not made any progress after so many years of research. No. Liuze shook his head and said with a smile, I think you misunderstood me. What I mean is to find more powerful and professional medical researchers to help, instead of just relying on the medical ninjas trained by our clan. As a family famous for fighting, the medical ninjas trained in the Taketori clan are naturally limited in ability and are far inferior to those top medical ninjas. My lord, do you mean to find other people from outside to help with the research? Taketori Shinsuke was stunned for a moment and waved his hands repeatedly, saying, this is not possible. This is absolutely not possible. If we allow outsiders to study, if the researchers have bad intentions, it is likely to bring disaster to our clan. This targeted research is a double-edged sword. They can certainly figure out the root cause of the defects of the corpse bone vein, but it will also completely expose the data of the corpse bone vein. If the other party develops, based on this data, they can get a method or means specifically targeting the Taketori clan. This is like a certain poison being studied specifically by someone, and a corresponding antidote is made. The entire Taketori clan is in danger of extinction. But, if we rely on the power of our clan alone to conduct research, when will we be able to solve the problem of the defects of the corpse vein? Liuze once again tried to persuade many of his fellow clansmen. No, no. Everyone expressed their opposition again and expressed their opinions one after another. Even if we wait another 500 years, we must not allow outsiders to study our corpse vein. For the safety of the entire clan, we can't take this risk. Yes, we can't take this risk. We can't afford such catastrophic consequences. Seeing the firm attitude of many of his fellow clansmen, Liuze had to give up the idea of seeking help from other top medical ninjas. In fact, he also had such concerns, but his desire for life and his fear of death made him choose to ignore this huge hidden danger. Now, facing the strong opposition of many of his fellow clansmen, he finally woke up and faced this problem. Since we can't rely on outsiders, let's work harder on our own. He sighed helplessly and then said, however, we can't directly invite outsiders to help with research, but I think we can also get some small amount of help from outsiders' human research data. When Meditarumi succeeds in taking over, I will ask her to give me a copy of the human research data in the Hidden Mist Village, to enrich the research foundation of the clan. Enriching basic research data can improve the level of medical ninjas, and thus speed up the research progress of the clan. This method is not bad. There will be no risk of leaking the corpse vein data. All the fellow clansmen nodded and agreed. In addition, Liuze didn't say one thing. Kimimaro used to work under Orochimaru. Whether for his own research or to prolong Kimimaro's life, a research madman like Orochimaru would definitely not leave this rare bloodline limit untouched. From this, it can be inferred that that person should also have a lot of research data related to the corpse vein. When there is a chance in the future, I will also make a deal with Orochimaru and bring back a copy of those materials. As the top researcher in the ninja world, Orochimaru must have his own unique insights on the research of corpse vein, which will definitely be of great help to them in solving the defects of corpse vein. Oh, by the way, Kimimaro can't be taken away by Orochimaru this time. Liuze secretly made up his mind. Kimimaro is extremely talented. He awakened the corpse vein bloodline limit at a very young age. In addition, he overused the corpse vein, so his life was so short that he couldn't hold on at the age of 15. This time, no matter what, Orochimaru can't take him away. Even if he doesn't use it for himself, he must not let him help the enemy. After all, he is now a Kirigakure ninja, and he is not the same as Konoha where Orochimaru is. In this way, after nearly a day's journey, the group stopped at a fork in the road not far from Kirigakure village. It seems that we have to part ways now. Standing at the intersection, Meditarumi said to Liuze with a smile. There are two forks in the road, one leading to the Hidden Mist village, and the other leading to the base of the Taketori clan outside the Hidden Mist village. The separation is only temporary, we will see each other again soon. Liuze smiled back. That's hard to say. Meditarumi showed a playful smile and continued, unless you can fulfill what you said to me earlier. Otherwise, I think it will be difficult for us to see each other again next time. It is not easy to convince the entire Taketori clan. And once Liuze fails, the promise of joining him that the other party made earlier will become an empty talk. In this case, it is naturally difficult for them to meet again. Don't worry, I will definitely convince them. Unless they are all fools and want to continue on that path of destruction. Liuze was full of confidence. The key to persuading a clan is to persuade the top leaders, and to become a top leader in the clan, it is not enough to have outstanding military strength, but also requires a certain amount of wisdom. Because every decision they make is related to the future of the clan, it is naturally easier to talk to a group of smart people than to be a fool. Now, with so many people from the same clan behind him, although Liuze has not officially entered the top level, he already has a certain voice. As long as you explain the interests involved, and then appeal to their feelings and reason, I believe that the clan leader should make the right choice. Seeing this, Terumi Mei winked playfully, and said with a smile, then I'll be waiting for your good news, Rokuze Genin. She emphasized the word Genin again. Seeing Terumi Mei teasing, Rokuze's face suddenly darkened. Can we not mention this? As a leader, his strength is really too low. If it weren't for his rich experience in his previous life and his identity as a member of the same clan, he would never be able to lead this group of bamboo cutter ninjas under him. Then wait until your strength is further improved. Bye. Terumi Mei smiled, and then stepped into another path with a group of followers without looking back. Chapter 46. Return to the bamboo cutter. Seeing this, Liuze did not waste any more time and immediately walked into another fork in the road with a group of his fellow tribesmen. Perhaps because he was about to get home, he couldn't help but become excited. His heart was pounding, and his blood seemed to be boiling, becoming extremely hot. Soon, after passing through a dense forest, an ancient village appeared in front of him. At this time, Taketori Shinsuke whispered, Lord Liuze, we found that there seem to be many people around us watching us. To be precise, they should be watching our village. If it weren't for their large number of people, it would be difficult to find those hidden in the dark. Oh. Do you know who they are? Liuze asked in a low voice without changing his expression. According to several other jonin, it seems to be the Anbu of Kirigakure. What do you think? Do you want to kill them? A trace of dangerous murderous intent flashed across Taketori Shinsuke's face. Are they from Kirigakure? Liuze hesitated for a moment and whispered, let's not touch them. As long as they don't take the initiative to cause trouble, just pretend you didn't see it. At the moment, Meditarumi has not completely broken with the third generation, so we don't have to rush out and make trouble. If Kirigakure is forced to kill us in advance, that would be very bad. The relationship between Kirigakure and Taketori was already a little tense, and with his previous life's criminal record, Liuze didn't want to stimulate Kirigakure's top leaders at such a sensitive time and cause unnecessary trouble. Well, okay. Although he was a little unwilling, Taketori Shinsuke still passed the order down. Then, as if they didn't notice the surveillance in the dark, they walked quickly along the path to the entrance of the village. Seeing a group of them appear, the guards at the entrance of the village were all startled, and after recognizing that they were from their own clan, they breathed a sigh of relief. Welcome to the triumphant return of all the adults. The two guards bowed their heads and saluted the many returning clansmen. How is the tribe going recently? Have the other members of the tribe who were evacuated from the front line returned safely? Eliusen immediately asked the two guards. However, just as the two guards were about to answer, they noticed that Eliusen was only at the level of a genin and still looked like a teenager, so they couldn't help but hesitate for a moment. You know, there are still many jonins in this group of people. Those adults haven't spoken yet, so it's naturally not the turn of such a child to interrogate them. Perhaps seeing their hesitation, Taketori Shinsuke immediately frowned and explained, "This is Lord Eliusen. You should answer whatever he asks. You must not hide anything." Yes, yes, yes. Seeing such a jonin support, the two nodded repeatedly, and no longer dared to have any contempt for Eliusen. The guard on the left said immediately, "In the past few days, our fellow tribesmen have retreated from the front line and returned to the village. Roughly estimated, there are more than 100 people, including so many of you. More than half of the tribesmen who went on this expedition have returned. If we exclude those who died in the battle, there should not be many fellow tribesmen left outside. Is that so?" Hearing their answers, Eliusen couldn't help but feel a little heavy. In this expedition, the tribe dispatched a total of nearly 500 tribesmen. Excluding the fellow tribesmen who have returned, nearly 1/3 of the personnel were injured. Although compared with a super large village like Kirigakure with a total population of more than 50,000, it is not much, but for a single tribe like them, it is already a serious injury. You know, excluding the elderly, weak, women and children who are completely unable to fight, the Taketori clan can only dispatch about 800 soldiers with all their strength. What about the current situation in the village? Is there anything wrong? Eliusen asked with a serious face. Not yet. The guard on the left shook his head and added, however, according to other adults in the tribe, they found that there are many Kirigakure Anbu surveillance around the village. They are hesitating whether to remove those Kirigakure Anbu ninjas and teach the Kirigakure higher level a profound lesson. Hearing this, Eliusen's heart was immediately clenched. Hurry up and gather all the tribe members to prepare for the assembly. He looked back at the many tribe members behind him and then strode past the two guards and walked into the village. After being reminded, he was not worried about the tribe members who followed him, but he was afraid that other tribe members in the village would not be able to bear it and make things complicated all of a sudden. Soon, along the avenue that runs through the entire village, Eliusen came to the central square of the village. There is a century-old tree here, and a bronze bell is hung on the tree. It is the communication tool used by the tribe to summon many tribe members on weekdays. Eliusen was about to step forward to ring the alarm bell, but Taketori Shinsuke grabbed the rope that could ring the bronze bell first. "Let me do it, sir," he said to Eliusen seriously. "Okay." Eliusen did not fight for it and nodded immediately. Ding ding ding. As Taketori Shinsuke swung the rope, the copper hammer tied to the top of the rope immediately hit the inside of the copper bell, making a series of crisp sounds. What happened? Who sounded the alarm again? Many Taketori people in the village talked about it, put down everything at hand, and hurried to the central square. However, after seeing Eliusen and his group who had just returned to the square, they immediately became extremely excited again, because quite a number of them found their relatives and friends in the crowd. However, not everyone was so happy, because Eliusen and his group also brought back many corpses of their fellow tribesmen. After recognizing the identities of those corpses, their relatives and friends immediately burst into tears. There were also some fellow tribesmen who had not seen the living people or the corpses, and they were also very nervous. They could only hope that their relatives and friends who had not returned had just fallen on the road and not died in a corner and no one collected the bodies. After a long time, seeing that almost everyone had arrived and that there were no other members of the same clan rushing to the gathering, Eliusen immediately signaled, "Please be quiet, I have something to say." Unfortunately, he was just a child, with only the strength of a genin, and none of the members of the same clan in the village were willing to pay attention to him. They continued to talk to themselves and make a lot of noise. Seeing this, the faces of many jonins who had recognized him, led by Taketori Shinsuke, suddenly darkened. Silence. Silence. The jonins immediately released their powerful chakra auras and used chakra to enhance their voices, suppressing the noisy voices of the crowd. In an instant, many of the members of the same clan who were still noisy suddenly became quiet, looking at each other, wondering why they suddenly got so angry. Then, Taketori Shinsuke introduced the many clan members who were still unaware of the situation with a serious face. This is Lord Rokuze. In his previous life, he lived until after the 4th Ninja World War. He has rich experience and wisdom that we cannot match. Now, he has been recognized by us and is comparable to the existence of the elders in the clan. Please respect this lord like we do. Otherwise, don't blame us for being rude. As he said this, he rolled his right foot hard. Crack. With a crisp sound, the stone slab under Taketori Shinsuke's feet was immediately crushed into several small pieces and flew out. Chapter 47. A shocking change in the clan. Seeing Shinsuke and the other jonin so serious, many of the clan members below immediately put away their contempt. Although they didn't understand why this happened, they didn't want to cause trouble. At this time, after scanning the entire crowd, Ryuze couldn't help but frown. Why haven't the clan leader and the elders come? Once the alarm bell sounded, except for the guards on duty, all clan members should put down their work and gather urgently. This is a rule set by the clan a long time ago. But strangely, Ryuze didn't see the clan leader and any elders in the crowd this time. Hearing this, 3 jonins below suddenly looked embarrassed. They looked at each other, then nodded solemnly, as if they had made a particularly important decision. Then, one of them walked out of the crowd and walked towards Ryuze under the big tree. However, his sudden move also attracted the attention of Taketori Shinsuke and other jonins who had already recognized Ryuze. Hey, what do you want to do? A jonin immediately stopped him. I have something important to report to Master Ryuze. The man hesitated for a moment, but still used the honorific. Since this fellow who looked like a child had already been recognized by many jonin, it was only natural for him to use the honorific. Let him come over. Ryuze immediately gestured to let him pass. He also wanted to know what important matter would happen at this time. Upon hearing this, the jonin who was blocking the road immediately withdrew his hands and made way, and the jonin who reported the news finally came to Ryuze. Tell me, what's the matter? Ryuze gestured and asked. Looking around, the messenger hesitated for a moment and whispered, this is a serious matter. For the time being, I can only tell you, Master. As he said this, he bent down, leaned close to Ryuze's ear, and covered his mouth with one hand. Seeing that the messenger was so cautious, Ryuze couldn't help but frown, feeling a little uneasy. Then, accompanied by the low voice of the messenger, an explosive news came into Ryuze's ears. Sir, 4 elders were assassinated, and the clan leader has disappeared. What? Ryuze's pupils shrank, and he couldn't help but clench his fists, not even noticing his nails digging into his flesh. But soon he realized that he was too excited, which was inappropriate. Because this news was too shocking, once it spread, the entire Taketori clan would likely riot and fall into an irreversible situation. Then, he suppressed his excitement and regained his composure. At least on the surface, nothing could be seen. Seeing this, the messenger and the other 2 jonin who knew about it couldn't help but nod secretly. In the face of such a drastic change, he was able to regain his composure so quickly. He was worthy of being recognized by so many of his fellow tribesmen. He was indeed a figure comparable to the elders of the clan. At this time, hearing Ryuze's exclamation, the people in the audience thought something had happened, but seeing that he immediately regained his composure, everyone didn't take it to heart anymore, just thinking that the messenger said something insignificant. Sir, you are not joking, are you? This kind of thing can't be taken lightly. Ryuze tried to stay calm and lowered his voice to confirm with the messenger again. I'm not joking. The messenger shook his head and whispered again. It is precisely because of the seriousness of the matter that we have not dared to leak it and have completely blocked the news. The bodies are still at the scene and we dare not move them. However, since you have the support of so many people in the same tribe, we can leave this matter to you without any worries. Eliuser was ready to refuse immediately, but thinking about the critical situation now, the death of the 4 elders and the disappearance of the clan leader, he really needed someone to take charge of the situation, so he had to bite the bullet and accept it. Okay, I understand. He nodded and said nothing more. Seeing this, the messenger also retreated tactfully. Afterwards, Eliuser calmed down his uneasy heart and tried to remain calm. He looked at everyone and said, "Everyone, I have something to remind you of. I believe many people have discovered that there are many people suspected to be from the Kirigakure Anbu outside the village who are monitoring us. For the survival of our clan, I ask everyone here to be patient for a while and not to have any conflicts with them. Once things get out of control, it will inevitably become what we saw in our previous life, dragging the entire clan into the abyss of destruction." Hearing this, many of the clan members below immediately talked about it. They were warlike and could not accept Eliuser's weak way of handling things. According to the previous style of the Bamboo Cutter clan, what they should do at this moment is to kill all the spies outside immediately. But when Eliuser mentioned the extermination of the clan in the previous life, everyone suddenly felt that those scenes were vivid in their minds, as if they had happened yesterday. Faced with such a situation, even if they were as unruly as they were, they could not help but start to reflect after experiencing a death, and reflect on whether what they did was right. Seeing that everyone was undecided, Taketori Shinsuke immediately expressed his opinion loudly. "I think Lord Rokuze's method of handling the matter is very wise, and I agree with it very much. I will follow your orders and temporarily tolerate those people outside who cannot see the light." Hearing this, other ninjas of Rokuze who had already recognized him also expressed their support. Seeing this, the people who were still hesitating below also made their choice. In this case, let's temporarily obey Lord Rokuze's orders. That's right. I'm willing to support it too. Although quite a few people felt that they were a bit blindly following, they felt relieved considering that Taketori Shinsuke and other senior ninjas should not be wrong in their vision. Seeing that everything went smoothly, Eliuser was very happy and immediately said, "However, although we choose to be patient, we have to doubt their intentions and take precautions. I suggest that everyone should not go out casually unless necessary recently, and the vigilance should be strengthened. Especially at night, the village's warning barrier should be fully opened, and don't be stingy with your chakra. If we are attacked by the Kirigakure without noticing, it will be bad." Hearing this, everyone nodded one after another, and there was no objection this time. Since we can't take the initiative to attack, it is reasonable to strengthen defense and prevent sneak attacks. Then, Eliuser said to the group of Jonin who followed him, "As for how to strengthen defense, it all depends on the arrangement of the adults. As a leader, he can't do everything himself, and it is the right way to hand it over to the people below. However, now that the clan leader and several elders have had accidents, such orders cannot be issued from them, so I can only remind them myself." "Yes, Lord Eliuser." The Jonin didn't think too much and took on the task immediately. Their small village cannot compare to Kirigakure, so naturally there is no security department, and there is no need for coordination from the security department. All they need is for the senior ninjas to make direct adjustments. Chapter 48, Father and son betray each other. Okay, there's nothing to do for now. Everyone go back to do your own things. Be safe, especially be careful of strangers in the village. Eliuser smiled and told everyone. Yes. Everyone dispersed and went about their own business. Especially those fellow tribesmen who had just followed him back. There were still many private matters to deal with. However, the clan leader and the 4 elders did not show up at this gathering, and everyone couldn't help but start to discuss privately. I wonder what the clan leader and the 4 elders are doing. Yeah, they didn't even show up at this kind of gathering. Maybe they were held up by something more important. Everyone was talking about it, but no one could come up with a clear answer. When most people had dispersed, only the 3 Jonin who knew the situation were left on the field. Seeing this situation, Taketori Shinsuke, who had already walked a long way out, stopped again. It seems that they still have something to do. After guessing for a while, he asked Eliuser from a distance, "Sir, is there anything else I can help you with?" Liuza hesitated for a moment, but still nodded. You stay. He felt good about this senior ninja, and he could use him as his confidant. Especially since the other party seemed to have that kind of close intention, he naturally accepted it with pleasure. More importantly, now that the clan leader is away, and the 4 elders have been assassinated, he is implicitly the most prestigious person in the clan, and can control the entire Taketori clan. However, the clan affairs are busy, and he also needs some assistance. Taketori Shinsuke is a good candidate. Yes. Taketori Shinsuke responded excitedly, and then returned to Liuza. Let's go, take me to see the scene. Liuza gestured to the 3 senior ninjas who knew the situation. Yes. The 3 of them immediately led the way, and walked deep into the village. At the same time, relying on long-distance communication, the 5 Cage held a video conference. However, the armistice agreement was not so easy to sign. There were already many contradictions within Konoha village and Kirigakure village. The awakening of past life memories has magnified this contradiction, making the situation within each of them even more tense. Under such circumstances, they are eager to stop the external war and quickly integrate their internal situation to restore stability. However, the situation of Iwagakure village, Sand village, and Kumogakure village is different from them. Their internal contradictions are not so intense. As the fuse of this ninja war, Sand village was initially in chaos because of the disappearance of the 3rd Kazakage, and then someone took advantage of the situation to cause the war. Now that the memories of past lives have been awakened, most of them have understood what is going on. In addition, the 4th Kazakage Rasa has tried his best to integrate internal forces. The chaos in Sand village has gradually subsided, and it has turned from the original defense stage to the counterattack stage. The situation in Kumogakure village is similar. The death of the 3rd Raikage has caused chaos within them, but now the memories of past lives have been awakened, and the 4th Raikage has successfully taken office, and everything is starting to get better. As for Iwagakure, there is no need to mention it. Although they lost the Battle of Kamubi Bridge, the chaotic situation in Konoha gave the old man the 3rd Tsuchikage hope of a counterattack. Therefore, the 3 villages were not willing, or did not want to end the war so easily. They all wanted to bite off a large piece of meat from the land of fire, but they did not dare to push too hard. Because pushing too hard would make Konoha put aside their past grudges and unite against the outside world. However, this did not affect the consensus reached between Konoha and Kirigakure. Signing a truce treaty was beneficial to both sides. Therefore, the 3rd Hokage and the 3rd Mizukage signed a truce treaty smoothly through a video conference. As for the other villages, they were still arguing, but the war on the front line had stopped, and there was no more unnecessary killing. However, this seemingly calm situation was actually undercurrents. On the Konoha side, the Uchiha clan's power was mainly concentrated on the eastern coast to fight with Kirigakure village. At this moment, Kirigakure village retreated, and they also took advantage of the situation to withdraw their own power. The 3rd Hokage and the top leaders wanted to transfer them to other fronts to guard against the attacks of the other 3 villages, but the tragedy of the night of the genocide made all the Uchiha clan members dare not forget. Led by the clan leader Uchiha Fugaku, all the Uchiha clan members retreated to the Uchiha garrison to defend, and confronted Konoha blatantly. However, because the Uchiha clan was not as strong as the entire Konoha village, they could only choose passive defense, and did not dare to attack rashly. As for the Konoha side, because the top leaders disagreed, they did not act rashly. The Hawks led by Shimura Danzo naturally chose to continue to exterminate the entire Uchiha clan as in the previous life, but the doves such as the 3rd Sarutobi Hiruzen, after learning about everything that happened after the demise of the Uchiha clan in the previous life, believed that the previous choice was wrong, so this time they oppose continuing to exterminate the Uchiha clan. In the Uchiha clan temple, the young Uchiha Itachi knelt down behind a man. "Father, have you really thought about it?" he asked the man with a strong sense of excitement. "Well, I've thought about it. This is what all the clan members want." Uchiha Fugaku turned around and looked at his son on the ground expressionlessly. In fact, he, like his son, was unwilling to have a direct conflict with Konoha. Therefore, in his previous life, after realizing that the situation was hopeless, he gave up resistance and chose to die in the hands of his son. But this time, God gave him a chance to be reborn. The clan members' trust in Konoha was exhausted. No one was willing to wait for death. They were ready to fight desperately, and Konoha lost the initiative. As the clan leader, he represented the will of all the clan members, so naturally there was no extra choice. If that's the case, then I can only say I'm sorry to you again. Uchiha Itachi raised his tearful eyes, and the black Magatama began to rotate. Sharingan illusion. Even if he had to do it again, he still made the same choice as in his previous life. Perhaps because he was not prepared, his father did not open his Sharingan, and was immediately hit by his illusion, and then he froze in place. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. He apologized desperately, with hot tears falling from his eyes. Then, a thin figure rushed in from outside the ancestral hall like a sharp arrow. Itachi, don't cry. Everything we did is worth it. In order to stop this war that should not have happened, I believe that the clan leader will understand us. Uchiha Shisu kept comforting his crying friend, and rushed towards Uchiha Fugaku quickly, and silently concentrated his chakra in his eyes. The dark pupils suddenly turned scarlet, and there were 3 black Magatama slowly rotating around the pupils. That was the Sharingan that had evolved to the highest level. However, the changes did not stop. The 3 Magatama spun faster and faster, and finally merged together, each turning into a black 4-cornered windmill mark that appeared in his eyes. Kotomatsu Kami, if you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 49. Walking into a Trap. However, at this moment, Uchiha Fugaku, who was supposed to be immobilized by Itachi's illusion, suddenly broke free and closed his eyes. As his vision was blocked by the other party's eyelids, Shisu's ultimate illusion was completely in vain. What? He was shocked. He thought that relying on Itachi's sneak attack to control the clan leader with ordinary illusions, and then using Kotomatsu Kami immediately afterwards would be foolproof. Who would have thought that the result would still be unexpected? In the final analysis, it was because Itachi was too young now, and his use of the Sharingan was far less than that of an adult, and his pupil power was far from enough. What's more, the Uchiha clan's innate Sharingan bloodline limit made each of their Sharingan owners a natural master of illusion, and their resistance to illusions was extremely high. Therefore, even if it was a sneak attack, Itachi would hardly have much impact on their unfathomable clan leader. They were too careless. However, before the two could make any new moves, Uchiha Fugaku on the other side had already let out a long sigh. 1 against 7. Shisu, you two really disappoint me. Before he finished speaking, 2 huge purple skeleton arms emerged from the ground and grabbed the two. Oh no, it's Susanoo. Shisu did not dare to neglect it, and also poured a lot of chakra into his eyes. In an instant, a yellow-green skeleton materialized out of thin air, enveloped him, and grabbed Uchiha Itachi, who was not far away. Bang! Because the distance was a little further, the purple skeleton arm was a beat slower, and did not grab the 2 people. It only collided with the yellow-green skeleton once, and a violent impact spread out, shaking the 2 back. Boom! There was only a loud bang, and the yellow-green skeleton hit a load-bearing column, breaking the entire thick column directly. At this time, Uchiha Fugaku also crashed into a wall behind him, but his body was covered by a purple skeleton. Obviously, it was him who had just used the purple skeleton arm to grab the 2 people. So, you really opened the main Gekkai Sharingan. Shisu was extremely surprised. Itachi had mentioned this to him long before he took action. He was skeptical at first, but now that the facts were in front of him, he couldn't help but believe it. Well, Uchiha Fugaku regained his footing, and then opened his eyes, revealing a special mark like a triangular windmill inside, and said, in order not to arouse Konoha's suspicion, I have been hiding this power, ready to use it to protect my clan members at a critical moment. But I didn't expect that one day I would use this power against my own people. I didn't expect that you, who also came from the Uchiha clan, would actually dare to use such power against me. As he said that, he stared at Uchiha Shisu opposite him, but deliberately avoided the other's eyes. They both have the main Gekkai Sharingan, and they have great resistance to each other's illusions, so they are not likely to be easily tricked. However, he is still quite afraid of the ultimate illusion Katamatsukami, that is bred in Shisu's eyes, which is said to be able to directly modify personal will. The other party wanted to use this ultimate illusion to modify his will, so as to stabilize the Uchiha clan in the name of the clan leader and quell the upcoming war. Unfortunately, these two children are too naive. They had died once, and were exterminated by Konoha. The entire Uchiha clan was ignited by the raging fire of anger and hatred. They will not have any illusions this time, and their trust in Konoha has been completely exhausted. Even if he is controlled as the clan leader, the war between Uchiha and Konoha will not be quelled. Unless Uchiha Shisu can use his Katamatsukami to modify the will of every Uchiha clan member one by one, so that they can let go completely. Unfortunately, he can't do it at all. Father, war will only bring sadness and death. Please think about it carefully. The protected Itachi once again exhorted Uchiha Fugaku. However, Uchiha Fugaku just shook his head regretfully. It's too late. 1 against 7. Go. With his order, 12 Uchiha Jonin suddenly rushed out and completely surrounded the entire ancestral hall. They changed their hand seals and released their chakras without concealment, blending together just above the ancestral hall. Then, Uchiha Shisu and the other two found that a strong chakra aura suddenly erupted on the ground of the ancestral hall, and then countless runes appeared, covering them. Oh no, it's a barrier. Uchiha Shisu's pupils shrank, and he suddenly felt an ominous feeling in his heart. All signs showed that Uchiha Fugaku had been prepared for their sneak attack this time, and even set a trap for them, waiting for them to fall into the trap. Go, go. Itachi reminded his friend anxiously. At this time, he was only 5 or 6 years old. Although he had memories of his previous life, his body was not the same as his previous life. His Sharingan had not evolved, and could not help at all. In addition, his father had been prepared for it, so it was almost impossible for them to win if they continued to stay here. Don't you think it's too late to leave now? With Uchiha Fugaku's angry shout, the chakra above the ancestral hall and the chakra on the ground merged and combined, instantly turning into a red cone-shaped barrier that enveloped the three people. Then, the 12 Jonin outside the barrier changed their hand seals, and then a powerful chakra energy condensed on the cone point just above the barrier, and finally turned into a blazing red light that locked onto Uchiha Shisu in the ancestral hall and shot away. The powerful aura of the Susanoo was easily captured by them, and there was no need to deliberately sense and lock it. Not good. Shisu, who was about to escape, sensed the attack from above. Especially after an inexplicable sense of horrible crisis arose in his heart, he dared not be careless, and quickly gathered chakra in his eyes, and blood and tears flowed out of his eyes. As Shisu desperately poured chakra into his Manjuki Sharingan, the Susanoo covering his body also expanded rapidly, and became more solid. However, in a moment, the original skeleton was covered with flesh and blood, and a set of armor was added, turning into a half-body warrior, holding an orange-red Magatama in his hand, and raising it to the top of his head. That was a Yasuka Magatama with extremely powerful defensive capabilities, even better than his Susanoo. Then, Shisu and Itachi saw that a beam of blazing red light penetrated the roof of the ancestral hall, but did not hurt the ancestral hall at all, like a non-existent phantom, shooting directly at the two of them. Ding. That beam of blazing red light fell on the Yasuka Magatama in Shisu Susanoo's hand, but the Magatama could not block it at all. It passed through the Magatama directly, penetrated the body of Susanoo, and fell on Shisu's forehead. Chapter 50, Illusory Boundary. How is it possible? Both Shisu, the person involved, and Itachi, the bystander, were shocked. The defensive capabilities of the Yasuka Magatama and Susanoo seemed to have no effect at all, and could not block the beam of blazing red light at all. But what was even more surprising was that the beam of blazing red light fell on Shisu's forehead, and did not show any killing power. Just as he was wondering, Uchiha Fugaku, who was not far away, slowly walked over, and said in a calm tone, "Don't worry, this illusion barrier has no killing power. However, in addition to trapping the target, it has another strange function." "What function?" Itachi asked hurriedly. "That is to suppress the pupil power of the Sharingan." Uchiha Fugaku stopped and looked serious. Hearing this, Shisu and Itachi were shocked. Especially Shisu. No wonder from the moment the beam of light fell on him, He felt that his pupil power began to decline rapidly, and Susanoo became more and more difficult to maintain. Originally, he thought that it was because he was too young and couldn't stand the power of the main Gekkai Sharingan, so this problem occurred. Now, he finally understood everything. No, we must leave immediately. Realizing that something was wrong, Uchiha Shizu immediately controlled Susanoo and rushed out of the ancestral hall. Success is due to the pupil technique, and failure is also due to the pupil technique. The main Gekkai Sharingan gave him extremely powerful power, but if the pupil power was suppressed and sealed, the main Gekkai Sharingan would become a decoration. His strength was at least reduced by half. Uchiha Fugaku did not stop him, but followed slowly behind him. Boom. With the power of Susanoo, Uchiha Shizu easily smashed the door of the ancestral hall and rushed out. What caught his eyes was a red cone-shaped barrier covering the entire ancestral hall. However, even if he rushed out from inside, he could not get rid of the beam of red light that fell on his forehead. It was like it had taken root in his forehead and could not be gotten rid of at all. What's even worse is that his pupil power is decreasing even faster. The Susanoo, which was originally wearing half armor, has degenerated. Although it can barely maintain its human form, the flesh and blood tissue on the surface is rapidly disappearing, revealing the bones underneath. Before Shizu can take further action, the four-cornered windmill mark in his eyes can no longer be maintained, and it has been restored to 3 megatoma surrounding the pupils. Damn it. Realizing that his situation is getting worse and worse, he dared not stop at all. He immediately clenched the right fist of Susanoo and hit the barrier in front with all his strength. Boom. The yellow-green fist landed on the barrier, and a huge bulge was seen, but the barrier seemed to have infinite elasticity and could not be broken at all. When he ran out of energy in that attack, he was shocked back several steps by the rebound force of the barrier. At this time, the Sharingan in his eyes could no longer maintain its state, and it had completely returned to an ordinary pupil, and the Susanoo protecting the two of them also completely dissipated. Don't waste your energy. Uchiha Fugaku walked up slowly and said calmly, this illusion barrier was originally created for the main Gekkai Sharingan, specially used to deal with the main Gekkai Sharingan holders who will endanger the safety of the clan. How could I not know? Uchiha Shizu was shocked. Not only him, but even Uchiha Itachi was full of disbelief. In his previous life, he had never heard of such a thing. Of course you don't know. Uchiha Fugaku continued to approach and said seriously, because this is a secret that only the head of the family knows. Only the head of the family knows how to arrange this barrier. While speaking, his Susanoo clenched his right fist and smashed it hard at Shizu. Unfortunately, Shizu did not relax his vigilance. The moment he sensed the attack, he used the flash body technique to quickly dodge with Itachi. Boom. The huge fist missed and blasted a huge hole in the ground. However, in order to avoid this attack, Uchiha Shizu was completely forced to the barrier behind him, with no room to retreat. Uchiha Fugaku did not stop, and once again controlled the Susanoo to rush forward. Unwilling to give up, Shizu wanted to fight back, but he never expected to meet a pair of scholar eyes. Sharingan, Genjutsu in an instant, Uchiha Shizu stood still, and his right hand, which had just been raised, fell down again. Even though he had the reputation of instant body Shizu, and was famous for his Genjutsu and instant body technique, he could not resist the Sharingan Genjutsu that he was best at using when his Sharingan was completely sealed. Shizu, realizing that his friend was in a bad situation, Itachi immediately wanted to remove the Genjutsu for him. However, a huge purple arm suddenly stretched out and grabbed him in the palm of his hand, leaving him no room for resistance. It was Uchiha Fugaku who grabbed him with Susanoo. However, Uchiha Fugaku did not even look at his son who betrayed him, but threw him away. Seeing that, Uchiha Itachi fell on the wall of the ancestral hall over there and could never get up again. At this time, Uchiha Fugaku untied the Susanoo and strode to Shizu. Now, in the name of the Uchiha clan leader, I take back your eyes, Uchiha Shizu. Although he knew that the other party had fallen into an illusion and could no longer hear his voice, he still made a solemn announcement. This was not only for the precious pair of main Gekkai Sharingan, but also to respond to the voice of the clan members and punish this traitor who betrayed his own people. Seeing his father's right hand reaching for his friend's eyes, Itachi, who was lying in the corner on the other side, was horrified. No, unfortunately, his voice could not change Uchiha Fugaku's will. However, just when Uchiha Fugaku's fingers were about to touch the eyes, a yellow-haired figure suddenly appeared beside Shizu, holding a chakra energy ball full of dangerous aura in his hand. Not good. Uchiha Fugaku thought to himself that it was not good, and he did not care about collecting the eyes anymore, and immediately manifested Susanoo to protect himself. Then, he saw the man without saying a word, and directly pressed the dangerous chakra energy ball on himself with lightning speed. Rasengan in an instant, Uchiha Fugaku felt an extremely powerful and chaotic twisting force acting on himself. Even with the protection of Susanoo, he was still involuntarily blown away. Boom. The huge Susanoo hit the ancestral hall behind, immediately knocking down a small part of the ancestral hall, and raising countless smoke and dust. Knowing that the newcomer was powerful, Uchiha Fugaku did not dare to neglect him. He immediately stood firm and waved the sword in his hand, using the wind pressure to blow away the smoke and dust. But when the smoke and dust dispersed, he found that the yellow-haired figure had disappeared. And with that person, Uchiha Shizu and Uchiha Itachi also disappeared. What a fast speed, worthy of the name Golden Flash. After sighing helplessly, Uchiha Fugaku looked in the direction of the Hokage building. Although it was only a brief encounter, he still recognized that it was Namikaze Minato, the 4th generation Hokage in his previous life. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.